1,000 generations falling down in worship to sing the song of ages to the Lamb. And all who've gone before us and all who will believe will sing the song of ages to the Lamb. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. And the angels cry, holy, all creation cries, holy, you are lifted high, holy, holy forever. So if you've been forgiven and if you've been redeemed, sing the song forever to the Lamb. Now if you walk in freedom and if you bear His name, sing the song forever to the Lamb. Ooh, we'll sing the song forever and amen. Your name is the highest, your name is the greatest, your name stands above them all thrones and dominions, all powers and positions, your name stands above them all. And the angels cry, holy, all creation cries, holy, you are lifted high, holy, holy forever. Hear your people sing, holy to the King of Kings, holy, you will always be, holy, holy forever. You will always be holy, holy forever.
15 years later, the cinema is taking its first steps. Cameramen employed by the Lumiere brothers filming at Jerusalem Station provide the first moving pictures taken in Palestine. From now on, the camera is a recording eye, and what it records is this: a society much like that of Cairo, Damascus, or Beirut, in an Arab city much like any other. By the end of the 19th century, Palestine has 500,000 inhabitants, of whom 30,000 live in Jerusalem. A veiled woman, a Sunni Muslim, one of the majority. An Orthodox Jew. He too turns away from the camera. Here we have an Armenian Pope. Each of the Christian denominations has its church here in the Holy City. The holy places of the three religions are scattered across a few hundred square meters. The Great Mosque is close to Christ's tomb. Further along, at the foot of the Wailing Wall, a Jew is reciting a prayer. He is wearing a Turkish tabush, and though he prays in Hebrew, his everyday language is Arabic. Jews form half the population of Jerusalem, but in the country as a whole they make up less than 5% of the total. Christians account for 10% and Muslims 85%. All of them are subjects of the Sultan of Constantinople. There are no frontiers in the Ottoman Empire. There are administrative divisions in which, in this immense territory, Palestine occupies a mere 27,000 square kilometers, made up of 3 small districts in the south of the province of Damascus. The same empire in the 17th century. In the meantime, it has lost the Balkans, France and Italy have seized North Africa. England has moved into Egypt, Aden, and even Kuwait.
All I want to say, they on it for you.
Welcome everyone to the Tori Stess Show. Today you're in for a treat. As we've been seeing, there's tons of wars happening. There is a lot of miscommunication. And I think today I wanted to start with just having a simple, before we begin, I need to actually say something directly to all of you that are listening to me live or, through iTunes, Spotify, whatever, however you're listening to me, watching me on X, Rumble, YouTube, Twitch, wherever you are. Some of you are going to be very uncomfortable. Some of you are going to be angry. Some of you are going to want to turn this off in the first 10 minutes per se and go write something in the comments about how I've lost my mind or sold out or that I'm pushing some kind of agenda. Stay. Because what I'm about to tell you is not Chrislam, right? I don't blend religions. I'm very solid in my Christian faith. Or I'm not going to tell you, that all the paths lead to the same God or any of that feel-good bumper sticker theology, right? That's not what this is. What this is history. Documented, sourced, with names, dates, families, and almost a neon old iron key that you can actually hold in your hand. I've actually touched it. I want to be precise about something else before we go further. When we talk about Israel tonight, and we will, we are talking about a governing state, a political entity, a government. We are not talking about Jewish people. We are not talking about Judaism. We are not attacking a faith, a people, or a heritage. A government is not a religion, even when the government tells you it is. And that conflation, that deliberate blurring of the line between states' political actions and an entire people's faith is actually one of the most dangerous tools in the propaganda playbook. And it works in both directions. People use it to avoid criticism of a government by calling it anti-Semitism. And people use it to justify actual anti-Semitism by pointing at a government. Both are wrong. Both are manipulations. A government is a government, and governments lie. That's what tonight is about. Now, I need to address the people in this audience who have already picked a team, and you know who you are. You've got the flags in your bio. You've got the talking points memorized. You've said things like, and I'm quoting things I've actually heard. That religion needs to be wiped out. Those people are savages. God is on our side and their God is false. Let me ask you something. And this is with genuine love and zero apology. Who made you God? Because I know my God. And my God, the one I pray to, the one I believe, has been present in every sincere heart that has ever called out to the divine across every tradition. My God does not take kindly to a human being sitting in their living room or their studio or their parliament, deciding which of his children deserve to exist. Not kindly at all, ever. That's not faith. That's arrogance, wearing a cross, a flag, or a news chyron. Pick your team if you want, but understand what you're actually doing when you do that. You are doing exactly what powerful people with agendas need you to do. You are a pawn who thinks they're a player. And here's the question I want you to carry through this entire show. Right now, tonight, in 2026, with cameras everywhere, with live streams, with satellites, with eyewitnesses posting from their phones in real time, governments and media are still lying to you about what's happening. Even in Jerusalem, a missile struck near the holiest sites of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism simultaneously. And the story you're being handed doesn't match what the people standing there are saying. If they're lying to you right now with all that technology, with all those cameras rolling, well, what do you think the history books are going to say about tonight in 50 years? And here's the question that should really keep you up. If they're lying right now, did they just start? Was there some year, some decade, some moment where they said, all right, until now everything was accurate, but starting today, we're going to spin it? Or is it just a little naive, maybe more than a little naive, to think that the lying is a new invention? Because if the answer is no, if the lying is not new, then we have to ask the question about everything. The textbooks, the narratives, the frameworks. Actually, the frameworks we were handed in school about who is civilized and who's barbaric, who is the aggressor and who's the victim, who has the right to land and who doesn't, whose God is real and whose is a threat. And yes, we have to ask about scripture too. Not because God isn't real, but because people who wrote things down, copied them, translated them, assembled them into canons in rooms full of politics and power, eliminated what didn't suit them, those people were human. And humans have agendas. And agendas, well, they shape stories. Now, some of you probably just tensed up. Good. Stay with that feeling. That tension is the beginning of thinking. There's a group of actual Christians that I want to name tonight, not to attack them, but to pose them as a question. The Quakers, the religious society of friends. They have no formal creed, no hierarchy, no one telling them what God said through a political filter. They sit in silence and wait for the light. They were among the first to oppose slavery. They have consistently across centuries refused to let a government tell them that violence in God's name is holy. Now here's my question, and I want you to sit with this one. Why is it that some of the loudest evangelical voices in America, people who say they follow the teachings of Jesus, the Prince of Peace, who told their followers to love their enemies, who healed the sick and fed the poor and said the meek shall inherit the earth, why do those voices not only support a political state's military occupation, but demand it? Why do they not stand up for other Christians? Or the Christians that have lived in that land for thousands of years and are currently being displaced? Why does interpreting a real estate transaction from 3,000 years ago, written by men, copied by men, translated by men, and assembled into canon by committees of men with imperial interests, why does that interpretation override the living testimony of Christian families who can trace their roots to the time of Christ himself? That's not a rhetorical question. I want you to actually answer it for yourself tonight. Because the answer, when you find it, will tell you exactly how the Huntington framework works. It will show you how the rhetoric pockets get built, how people who genuinely love God get handed a set of talking points that serve a geopolitical agenda and call it theology. How the story of ancient enemies gets manufactured, distributed, and then confirmed by every news cycle until it feels like truth. It's not truth. Tonight I'm going to show you what truth looks like. It looks like a man walking through the streets of Jerusalem before dawn. It looks like a 1,000-year-old key. It looks like a door that has been opened every single morning for 1,400 years by a Muslim land to let the world into the tomb of Jesus. So that's where we're going to start. But then there's another point that I want to make. And this is going to get you uncomfortable too. This is going to get you extremely uncomfortable. And I'm going to ask you something that sounds very simple but isn't. Follow the money. No, actually, go deeper than that. Follow the power. Because money is just what power looks like when it's being counted. Every time in history that a narrative got built, every time a story got told about who the enemy is, who the savage is, who is civilized and who's the threat, and who has the right to land, who's a squatter in their own ancestral home, somebody benefited from that story, not God. Not the people in the pews, not the families burying their dead, someone with a ledger, someone with a map, somebody with an army or a media company or government contract, or maybe all three. Let's be honest about who benefits from the idea that Muslims and Christians are eternal enemies. The defense industry benefits. You can't sell $1 trillion worth of weapons without an enemy. And an enemy defined by religion is the most sustainable enemy there is. Because you can never negotiate peace treaty with a religion. You can't sit a faith down at a table and get it to sign something. A religious enemy is forever. A religious enemy is a business model. Certain governments actually benefit. Not all, but certain ones do. The ones that need their own populations too afraid and too angry to look carefully at what is being done in their name. Fear is the oldest political technology in human history. It works every time. You tell people that their civilization, their God, their children are under existential threat. And they will hand you extraordinary power to protect them. And once they've handed it over, they rarely ask for it back. Media conglomerates benefit. Conflict is content. Nuance does not get clicks. A story about Muslim families who have protected the holiest Christian church on earth for 1,400 years. That story is beautiful and complex. And yet it asks something of you. It asks you to think. It asks you to hold two things in your mind at once. Rage is cheaper. Rage keeps you on the platform. Extremists on every side benefit. The radical who needs to recruit, the demagogue who needs a base, the terrorist who needs a grievance. All of them need the same thing. They need you to believe the other side is irredeemably evil. They need the complexity gone. They need the Nusbeh family invisible. They need the Judeh family invisible. They need 1,400 years of a Muslim man opening a Christian door every morning to simply not exist in your mind. And so far, for the majority of people in this world, it doesn't. And the people who suffer, the Palestinian Christian who can't reach the church, her grandmother was baptized in, right? The Muslim man whose family has protected that church for 40 generations is now watching missile fragments land on its roof while the world argues about narratives. The Jewish family in Tel Aviv terrified of the next siren. The American soldier who came home and can't explain what he was actually fighting for. The mother in Gaza, the kid in Ohio who was told to pick a team and is quietly falling apart because something in his soul knows the team doesn't feel right, but he doesn't have a language to say why. Those people that I just mentioned, those people don't benefit. Those people are actually the cost. Now, I also want to say something about God, because I've been talking about systems and power and money, right? And I don't want you to walk away from this thinking that the conclusion is that God is a lie invented by people who wanted control. That's the easy, cynical off-ramp, and I'm not taking it. And I don't think you should either. Here's what I do believe. And I actually, not believe, I know. God is real. The divine is real. The hunger in the human soul for something greater than itself. The hunger is not a manipulation. That hunger is the most honest thing about us. It's been there in every civilization that has ever existed. It shows up in cave paintings before language. It shows up in the last words of people who are dying. It's not a product. It's not an invention. It's the thing underneath everything else. But here's what else I believe. God is not in a building. God is not owned by an institution. God is not the property of a denomination. God does not need a government to enforce his will. God does not need an army. God does not need a cable news segment. God does not need you to hate anyone on his behalf. The moment someone tells you that God requires your hatred, that's the moment a human agenda has put a costume and called itself holy. Now, your faith is yours. It lives in you. It lives in the moment you're standing somewhere quiet and something in the universe reaches back. It lives in the inexplicable peace you felt in your worst moment when you had no reason to feel peace. It lives in the impulse to help a stranger that came before you. And sometimes, before you can even think about it, that impulse appears. That is where God is, between every breath. That's where God has always been. The four walls that everyone calls temple, mosque, church, are just a meeting place. They were never supposed to be a fortress. They were never supposed to be a headquarters. And when they become a place where you're told who to fear and who to hate and whose suffering counts and whose doesn't, you have every right, and I would say every spiritual obligation, to walk outside and look at the sky and remember that the God you're looking for was never in that room to begin with. Now, to the people watching tonight who feel a little lost, I see you. I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to have the story you were handed start to fall apart. Oh, geez. I had a story of a life that I believed was true, that one day was ripped from under me. I still haven't recovered. It's been over 6 years. To pull one thread and watch something unravel that you built your identity around collapse, oh my God. To sit with questions that the people around you treat as dangerous. To feel like you're standing in a gap between what you were told and what you're starting to see. That gap is not a crisis. That gap is a doorway. God is not threatened by your questions. The divine is not fragile. A truth that cannot survive scrutiny was not a truth. It was control. Real faith, the kind that holds in the dark, the kind that has carried human beings through plagues and wars and exile and loss, that faith is not afraid of history. That faith is not afraid of complexity. That faith, well, it doesn't need you to be ignorant to survive. So, if you feel lost tonight, good. Stay for a little while. Sit in the not knowing. Because the people who never feel lost are the most dangerous people in the world. They're the ones who burned the libraries. They're the ones who drew the maps that erased people. They are the ones who wrote the history that served them and called it God's will. The people who felt lost, who sat in the gap and refused the easy answer, now those are the ones who found something real. I'm not telling you how you should think, but I'd like you to borrow a little bit of posture for tonight. Come into this with open hands, not empty hands. Open hands. Bring everything you believe with you. Bring your faith, your doubt, your anger, your grief, your patriotism, your skepticism. Bring all of it. Just hold it loosely enough that new information can land. Because here is the thorough line of everything we're going to talk about tonight. The truth does not need your protection. the truth has been doing just fine for almost 2 millennia in the hands of a Muslim family who wakes up before dawn and walks through the streets of Jerusalem and opens a door that the whole world is supposed to believe they have no right to touch. The truth is in the key. And the question, and the only question that matters tonight, is whether you're ready to hold it. And so, as I said, many of you will be extremely upset. Others will be struggling with your own faith. You won't understand how to, I would say, not cope, but more so feel like you're understanding what's going on. And I'm here with you because at some point in my life I struggled with the same. It's just that I feel my faith is so perfect and solid that nothing phases me. So let's see how we can begin. Let me see. I want to let me see if this is the one that I want to show you. First, I am going to show you, not that one, this one. Okay, here's a report from a long time ago. It's kind of hard to find, but I hope you enjoy this. Here we go.
Meanwhile, thousands of Christians flocked to the Holy Land to celebrate Easter. Pilgrims from around the world took part in ceremonies today at the Holy Church in Jerusalem. Al Jazeera's Nick Schifrin has more on the Holy Temple.
How old is this document?
This one, it's 1261.
Adib Judy's documents don't only unlock his family's past.
So this is the Sultan's stamp.
This is the Sultan's stamp. And this is written also in gold.
They unlock the past, present, and future of Christianity's most sacred site.
They keep the church in peace until now.
For 1,000 years,
Each Sultan gave your family a new document,
Yes.
right?
Jerusalem's rulers have bestowed Adib's family with uninterrupted trust.
This is from the Islamic court. They give us also the custodian of the keys of the Holy Sepulchre Church. This is the key that what Salah ad-Din gave for my family.
Almost 1,000 years ago.
This is, yes.
Adib is Muslim, but he holds the key that opens the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built where Jesus is believed to have been crucified.
Why did Salah ad-Din entrust your family with this responsibility?
Okay. This is a long story.
That story starts way back in 1187. Salahuddin, a Muslim sultan, recaptured Jerusalem from Christian crusaders. His followers wanted him to destroy the Holy Sepulchre, but historians call Salahuddin patient and wise. He protected the church. He handed over the keys to the same family charged with the care of nearby mosques, Adib's family.
It's a very smart man, and he keep the church in peace. Not also the Holy Sepulchre Church, all the churches in the Holy Land.
Adib's proud of his responsibility.
So this is the family tree. This is the family tree.
And his heritage.
It's a very large family tree.
Yes.
And today, the tradition continues. Through the alleys of Jerusalem's old city, Adib escorts his oldest son, 19-year-old Jawad, to his destiny. For the first time, Jawad carries the key to the church's front door.
You nervous?
Quite nervous.
But he did just fine. As his father, grandfather, and more than 100 of his ancestors have done, he hands the key over to Christians. This time the Franciscans, who run a portion of the church. Turns out there's another reason a Muslim family keeps the key. The 7 Christian sects who run the church don't get along. Adib and his family are neutral, trusted observers.
5 minutes, the church will be open.
And so on this day, like every day, Adib and another Muslim family officially open the church. But just because it isn't holy ground for them doesn't mean it's not sacred.
I am a Muslim. This is the holiday of the Christians. This is my holiday also.
And how do you feel every time you walk in?
Not good, wonderful.
And so on this Easter, the keys to Christ's tomb are, and will continue to be, in good hands. Nick Schifrin, Al Jazeera, Jerusalem.
So, how does that feel to know that for millennia, 40 generations, passed down from father to father, they provide a key that every day in the morning before the sun breaks, they unlock the church, the Holy Sepulchre, for all Christians. And at night, they lock it again. That's their job. Now, you might say, what? No, Muslims. Let's get into these two families, because there's two, and why there's such an issue. See, a lot of people don't know the history, and it was actually a conversation I had with my mom, and I was like, you know what? I should actually tell people. I don't think people know this, because it's one of the most remarkable stories in all of Jerusalem's history, and it goes right to the heart of what makes that city so layered. Two Muslim families hold the key to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and have for over 800 years. Here's how it works. The Judeh al-Husseini family that you just saw on the video from Al Jazeera holds and safeguards the physical key. The key itself is cast in iron. It's about 12 inches long, and the one currently in use is roughly 500 years old. The Judeh family also possesses an older key, at least 850 years old, that eventually broke from centuries of use. Now, the other family that they mention is called the Nusbe family, and they're responsible for the actual act of opening and closing the doors. Each morning, a representative of the Nuseb family, right, they actually climb a small wooden ladder to reach the keyhole of the massive doors. If he, because it's usually a male, doesn't open the door, it would stay shut. So one should ask, why Muslim families? Well, the reason is beautifully practical. The church is shared by multiple Christian denominations: Greek Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox, Catholics, and others. And to be fair, the Catholics are the ones that have beef with all the Orthodox denominations. And this happened around, I think it's like 1050, 1100 AD. And so basically, if the key were held, say, for example, by the Palestinian / Greek Orthodox, because they're kind of the same, Christians, right? It would signal that they owned the church. And the Catholics did not want that. The Catholics did not want the people that were from the area that were Orthodox Christians to own the key, because the Pope should have it, because he's the representative of God on earth. And here we have Muslims that are considered neutral parties. Now, how did this all happen? Well, the arrangement goes back to like the 7th century, when the Muslim Caliph Umar captured Jerusalem. And this goes back to Turkey. So now you're going to understand why I'm talking about Turkey, because I think everyone's got everything wrong, the whole I'm just going to say. That's just me. But let's just stick to the facts. I'm going to stop. All right. So this Muslim caliph wanted to avoid clashes among the Catholic and the Orthodox Christians. And so they were entrusted guardianship. So the entrusted guardianship basically was given to a Muslim family. That's when Saladin retook Jerusalem from the Crusaders in 1187. And he formalized a two-family arrangement that we still see today from 1187. Now, there's one slight detail that captures Jerusalem perfectly. There's a wooden ladder placed on the church's ledge by a worker who fixed a window in 1757 and forgot to remove it. Because of the fierce disputes between the Catholics and the Orthodox over every inch of the building, and under papal instructions not to touch it, that immovable ladder has remained in place for nearly 270 years. Nobody can agree whose responsibility it is to move it. That's how petty the papacy is. So the holiest site in Christianity is unlocked each morning by a Muslim and has been essentially without interruption for over a millennia. It's one of the greatest symbols of Jerusalem's tangled but layered coexistence. Now, let's talk first about the Judea al-Husayni family that are the custodians of the Holy Sepulchre. Now, the al-Husayni family is part of the oldest Sunni Muslim dynasty in Jerusalem, with origins dating back to the time of Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century. Their full name, Judea al-Husayni al-Godaya, and that reflects their lineage as Hashemite nobility, meaning they trace their ancestry to the Prophet's family. The Judea family is part of the broader al-Husayni family. Judea al-Husayni was the sheikh of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the custodianship of the Holy Sepulchre key was given to the most prominent and powerful family in Jerusalem. Now, this is how it began. Now, according to the Jerusalem historian, Dr. Aref al-Aref, in his book, hold on, let me see what the title is. The Detailed History of Jerusalem. The Judea al-Husayni family was entrusted with the keys to the Holy Church since the 12th century under Saladin in 1887. Saladin, a generous and liberal ruler, did not wish to bar the Holy Land to Christian pilgrims, despite years of struggles with the Crusaders that the Catholics had unleashed. Saladin was, however, no naive idealist. He realized that soldiers might conceal themselves among thousands of pilgrims who poured into the Holy Land each Easter, and so he took practical steps, including ordering the key to be retained by the powerful Hashemite noble family, Judea al-Husayni, to protect the church from any ruler who might come after him and thinking of running it. Now, the keys themselves were created on July 15th, 1149. Saladin formally assigned them to the Judea al-Husayni family on February 10th, 1187. Now, the Judea family passes down 2 sets of keys. Again, like I said, one set is at least 850 years old and is now obviously broken after centuries of use, and the newer key, still in use, is about 500 years old. The key itself has a metal handle and a triangular shape and a square tip, measuring about a foot. Now, the family also holds 165 royal decrees, known as faramans. Faramans are issued by the successive sultans who ruled Jerusalem, all enshrining the family's custodial ties, and these are in the family's custody until today. So, as you understand, it was the Muslims that kept the peace, and the Muslims that said that the Christians should have access to the church and the holy site. Okay? I want you guys to be paying attention to the nuances here. Now, their role then and now, the Judea's family role specifically, was to hold and protect the key. Opening the doors is a separate responsibility that belongs to the Nusebe family. The Nusa, we say, but Nusebe family. And it's a deliberate division of duties going back centuries. Besides being the custodian of the keys, Judea al-Husayni is also the Holy Tomb Seal holder. Again, Sunni Muslim family for centuries is the Holy Tomb Seal holder. The family puts its seal on the holy wax before the emergence of the holy light on Holy Saturday, marking the beginning of Easter. How many of you knew that? Did any of you know that? Anybody? Right? Anybody. probably not. I've been there, I observed it, and I've told you many a times that whenever I was in Old Jerusalem, I would sit and talk with the imams and the rabbis and the priests of all Christian denominations that appear and have these conversations. I've said this numerous times over the years. Now, that family is also responsible for maintaining neutrality in the church. And that's a difficult task since the building is divided between Roman Catholic and all the Orthodox denominations, right? Each of which has monks living within it. So in the church, right, we have Greek Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox, Syrian Orthodox, Ethiopian Orthodox, Coptic Orthodox, you name it Orthodox, they've got a monk living there. Now, Adib Jawad Judeh al-Husseini right now is the current custodian. He was born in 1964 or 64. He's married with 4 children and speaks Arabic, English, and Hebrew. He lives in Jerusalem and he does these duties of the keys on a daily basis. His father gave him the key to the church when he was just 8 years old. His father, Jawad, I think it was Adib Judeh al-Husseini, right? Was born and raised in the old city of Jerusalem, and he received custody of the Holy Sepulchre keys at the remarkably young age of 16 after his own father's death. He was also one of the first founders of the Jordanian broadcast station in Amman, where he held a technical engineer position and served as the holder of the stamp for the Holy Grave and custodian of, get this, Waqafchi Sultan. Now, in his own words, Adib Judeh al-Hussein had written, as a Muslim and the current custodian of the keys to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, I consider the church a second home. Inside this holy shrine, I cherish many pleasant childhood memories, escorted there by my father. Also there I learned the true meaning of Muslim-Christian coexistence, which is deeply rooted in Palestinian history and culture. I believe in Jesus Christ and his mother Mary. I would not be a true Muslim if I did not believe that he had the power to give life to the dead and eyes to those who could not see. And he also said, and let me get the right quote, every day at dawn when the door opens, we reaffirm our intention to keep alive this tradition of cooperation and respect. It's an act witnessed by pilgrims and visitors from all around the world. They see this ritual a tangible manifestation of peaceful coexistence and mutual respect between different faith communities. Jerusalem is not just for Christians, he said. It's for the Christians, for the Muslims, and for the Jewish. Now, we have been told by the powers that be that Muslims are a threat to Christians. And I believe that Muslims are no threat to Christians, and it deserves a careful and honest answer because the full picture is both inspiring, I guess, and complicated. It is kind of complicated, isn't it? I think all of you are finding that right now. So, before we get into that, I am going to see, okay, I can take this off. I'm going to play just this quick clip so you can see something.
תראי, אנחנו בשנת 1187 עד היום בתפקיד הזה, תפקיד הכבוד מבחינתנו. תראי, אני התחלתי ללמוד זה שהייתי בן 8 שנים, וזה הולך מהאבא לבן.
comment on the screen from someone that says Muslims are just lost and unsaved and also need Jesus. Now, going back. Jesus is mentioned more times than he is in the Bible in the Quran. Muslims slept next to Jesus' tomb to protect it for thousands of years. And again, I go to the beginning of my show, and you should listen to that, is who made you God to decide who's right and who's wrong, who's lost and who needs saving? You leave that up to God. You allow people to do what they wish. Your religion is no better than another's because it's extremely personal. Because once you take away scripture, once you take away a Bible that has been edited and re-edited, I mean, just go online and see how many versions of the Bible there is. What religion do you really subscribe to? And this is why I said a lot of people are going to feel uncomfortable, right? Because you have to think of that. You have to think of that. And propaganda has changed the face of how we see religion. And I've said this before, because when people conflate, oh, you're anti-Semitic if you're against what the Israeli government's doing. It's like, no, I'm not. That's a government. I do not hate Judaism. I do not hate Jews. That's a wrong thing to say. But they've conflated the two. And so you have to think, when was it that everyone suddenly had fear? And why is it that do you feel compelled that you need to protect your God? If you have to protect your God is not almighty. How about that? This is all a show to put everyone in nice little boxes and then pit them against each other. I believe Jesus said that too, and that's why he flipped tables. But it's extremely, extremely, extremely important that we understand the differences. So, let me get you to my next. So, as I said in the beginning, I've said this many times throughout the years, Chrislam is not going to be a thing. Even though the papacy right now has made a proposal to the Greek church, and the head of the Greek Orthodox Church was like, yeah, I'll kind of think about it. Because the Pope said, hey, Catholics should be Orthodox too. So you Greeks, since you're the OGs, right? You come here to us. Forget your Easter going, after Passover like the Bible says. Forget it. We're doing Hallmark. We're all doing it together. We'll be the same. The Greek church right now in Greece is up in arms. They are like, what is going on? Why is this happening? All now, right? So, they're having really big problems. The Pope's like setting fires left and right. And anytime you mention, like I saw the really sad statement that Ambassador Huckabee put out as a response to the actual Christians that wrote to the president and him and said, why are Christians being blocked out? Like, who has the right to tell Muslims and Christians that they can't go to church or their mosque because you said so, for their safety, of course. It's the same argument I made during COVID, if you remember, where I found it appalling and I was throwing up in my mouth. I remember going to church, but obviously that priest was arrested that we had in my church. I knew that, but that he was dirty. But I was extremely upset and wrote to a lot of people about the two Greek Orthodox priests, one in Boston, I think, and one in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, that were fired for not adhering to the rules and regulations imposed on them during church service. They said, no communion. You can't open. Everyone needs to wear a mask. Vaccinated only. And they said no. And it was the same thing that happened in my church. I saw everyone, you have to wear a mask. I'm not fucking wearing a mask. Kick me out then. Tell me how God said that if I don't wear a mask, I can't sit here. So guess what I fucking did? I sat there with no fucking mask. Okay? And when idiots were standing there with their mouth open waiting for communion, I waited for the spoon. Because I wasn't going to do that. I'm not scared. My God is mighty and strong. And nothing happens without a say. So how dares science and Fauci and the governor of Ohio tell me that I'm not allowed to congregate because I can spread disease? Well, I'm going. And if that disease is to spread on me and get me sick, then so be it. I mean, I'm unvaccinated. I hardly wore a mask. I just kept eating on planes, I'm fine because my God is awesome. Now, let's talk about Chrislam for a second. Let's see what that Chrislam discussion. Remember when they brought it up because they had that Mahdi guy that I showcased about a year ago who was saying how they need to unite. They don't need to unite, okay? But we should watch this video so you guys can understand how they're blurring the lines on all fronts, making one religion more important than another, making a state government equal to a religion, and therefore controlling what we say. Here we go.
Back to the phone lines. We'll talk to Kenneth in Tennessee next. Hi, Ken.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, I just had one question. A friend had told me about a new group called Chrislam, and it was just a combination of Christianity and Muslim belief, and I had not heard about it. I looked it up online, and I just wondered if you could tell me who's involved with that and actually what it's about.
Well, actually, it's a term that's very, very fluid. So it can fit a number of different situations, circumstances, organizations, etc. The science fiction author Arthur Clarke actually used the term in a futurist novel back in 1993. The novel was called The Hammer of God, and he used it to refer to a blending of Christianity and Islam into one religion. But the word is also a word that refers to various religious cults from the West African nation of Nigeria, which blend elements of Christianity and Islam. So there are a lot of different ways in which that term is being bandied about or used. But here's the bottom line. There is no way in which you can harmonize Christianity and Islam. The two simply cannot find any coherence, one in the other. Because at the very beginning, you have Islam saying that Christ is not God. And to say that Christ is God is to commit the unforgivable sin of shirk. On the other hand, Christianity, its core value is that Jesus Christ is, in fact, God.
So we're going to stop that right now because I'm not about this whole tri-mesh. Jesus was the Son, God is God, and the Spirit is Spirit. 3. That's it. I do not say that Jesus is God. I say that Jesus is God's Son and child, and came here and he sacrificed him and blessed him, right, to have the opportunity to come to his children and his other children, which is you and I, to wake us up and realize exactly how it is. Why would he come and wake us up 2,000 years ago? Probably because we were in the same position we are now 2,000 years later. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. And this is why Jesus came down and archangels were down too, each of them with their own purpose, one for war, one for knowledge and light and frequency, others for amicable extractions from areas, right? So that guy is wrong, but this is how they put the premise on it. You know, what you say potato, I say potato, right? Prophet, Messiah. So they thought Muhammad is an ultimate prophet that came after Jesus, but yet they believe in Jesus and they believe in Mary, something that the Pope now says, oh, we gave her too much credit. We need to get rid of that. So that's interesting, right? Let's just get rid of, Jesus's mom because she's just way too much. Because maybe he had kids and people are going to find out and that'll be a problem because we sold them a story. So we're just going to cut her out of the picture. These are really, 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 really good. And I don't take Ozempic. I can't. I have my liver. I wish I could. I would be super skinny then. So going back to the families. As we said, the simple, most important historical moment in Muslim-Christian relations was the conquest of Jerusalem by the Caliph, right? And that was in 635 after Christ's death. But what happened next is what's extraordinary. Remember, we had the Council of Nicaea in 400 AD, where the Christians were separated. It didn't really help the Catholics creating the Catholic Church, even though they tapped King Constantine. Christians were still not buying it, especially the Christians that were in Jerusalem. Sophronius was the Patriarch of Jerusalem, and he invited Umar to pray inside the church of the Holy Sepulchre. Umar refused, not out of disrespect, but fearing that future Muslim generations would claim that the church is their own and turn it into a mosque. Umar instead prayed a few yards away where the Mosque of Umar was later built, right there in Jerusalem. So the Muslims said, no, I understand, Patriarch, we should be praying together. You pray to God the way you see him, and I will, and we can do that together in peace. But if I enter your church in the future, people that pray to God the way I do will then say it's theirs. You see? So he also signed the Covenant of Umar, guaranteeing protection for Christians to live and worship freely and protection for Christian places of worship. Now, this was not a very small gesture, right? Because the most powerful military commander in the world at that moment deliberately protected the holiest Christian site. And the act has echoed down 1,400 years to the present day, when the descendant of that tradition still unlocks the church every morning, over 40 generations, stemming from that Caliph Umar, to today. Now, it would be incomplete to paint only the rosy picture, right? The historical reality of Christians living under Islamic rule was defined by the Dhimmi system. So a lot of you are going to get pissed off once I analyze that a little bit, but which is actually better than persecution, but also carried real restrictions. Under this system, non-Muslims retain their religious freedom and receive protections from the state. Non-Muslims held significant administrative roles. During the Abbasid era, Christians occupied major government positions, and the presence of non-Muslims in administration impressed outside observers. However, the dhimmis were subject to specific restriction, including prohibitions on building new places of worship, repairing existing ones without permission, and were required to pay a special poll tax called the jizya. They were also periodically exposed to stricter enforcement of social restrictions depending on the ruler and era. So, in other words, in Jerusalem, when under Muslim rule, Ottoman Empire specifically, which was one of the worst ones, I guess, the Christians were always protected. They could always pray. They always had a seat at the table to talk government, but they were contained. Kind of like what the Israelis are doing to non-Jewish residents. Now, the honest conclusion most historians reach is nuance. Muslim tolerance of non-believers was, generally speaking, far better than anything available in Christendom until the rise of secularism in the 17th century. And that's because of the Catholic Church that took dominance and, had proven itself by telling kings and queens what to do all those years and such. Now, that's a real and significant statement. European Christians were burning each other and massacring Jews during the very centuries when Christians in Jerusalem and Cairo were practicing their faith openly, running hospitals and serving governments. That's a fact. Now, the story of the Judea family cuts through all the theological and historical debate with a simple daily fact. Every single morning for over 800 years, a Muslim family has walked through the streets of Jerusalem's old city, carried the key to Christianity's holiest church, and ensured that its doors open for believers from every corner of earth. As Adib Jude had said, how did he say it? This legacy of shared stewardship between al-Husseini family and the Nusbeh family not only honors the history of Jerusalem, but also provides a model for the world. Now, it's not a model of perfect equality. History is never that simple, but it is a model of something real. Something that has endured through crusades, the Ottoman Empire, World War I, World War II, and every conflict since until today. The idea that people of different faiths can be, in the most literal sense, keepers of each other's sacred things. I mean, this is a story of Jerusalem people don't talk about. Because it's a lot easier to divide people than it is to show them that they're united at core, just simply for being people. So you have to ask yourself, I mean, most of this stuff escalated after 9/11. Who tends to benefit from that? I mean, you should have that question in the back of your mind. When did I start hating one religion or another? When did you start hating Muslims? When did you start hating Jews, right? It's all because of what you're being told. So I thought it was great to have an honest conversation with historical facts so that we don't muddy the waters and we have a more transparent way of understanding where we are. But see, there was a whole thing about this. This is, remember when I showed you the Milgram experiment and how people believe in authority? And I did this way before COVID, right? And the reason I did those and showcased those experiments and discussed them is because I knew what was coming. Now, you can believe that or not, but I kind of told you in 2018 you were going to get locked down. And the reason I said it is for you to have some self-reflection and to understand why you would abide by those rules. I'm not telling you how to think, but I'm giving you the tools so that you can self-assess. So if you think back to the times, how many times did I show this Milgram experiment? You notice that the white coat and the illusion of authority or importance had people bending the knee to anything. They would do anything. Or that experiment with the lady going into that waiting room, and every time the buzzer would go, everyone would stand up and sit down for no reason. And after one or two tries, she just jumped in doing it too. Because in society, we have been trained to go with the flow. And if majority says, then majority is. And this is why it was done in the way it was done and what we're seeing. And this applies to all things, not just pandemic shutdowns or the way you vote or who to hate. Everyone's picking a damn team. That's why I always say, why are you picking a team? You don't have to pick a team. Well, why are you picking a team? You're a free actor for them. You are helping them. So before we go into the Nusbeh family, I was thinking, let me see if this is it. Okay, I'm going to share the screen because I have it. No. I'm going to showcase to you the experiment. I'm trying to find it. Oh, and I just had it in front of me too. Is this it? No. There we go. The Clash of Civilizations. Please enjoy this lecture. It's only about 7 minutes, but very important.
So what if the biggest conflicts of our time, what if they aren't really about politics or economics? What if they're about something much, much deeper, something cultural? That's the powerful and, let's be honest, kind of dangerous idea at the heart of Samuel P. Huntington's The Clash of Civilizations. It's a theory that completely changed how we looked at the world after the Cold War ended.
Okay, so I want you to imagine it's the early 1990s. The Berlin Wall is rubble, the Soviet Union, gone. For like half a century, the entire world was basically defined by this one single fight, capitalism versus communism. And then, boom, it was over. The question on everyone's mind wasn't just, what happens now? It was more like, okay, who are we supposed to fight now?
And look, this wasn't some stuffy academic debate. No, this was a global puzzle. The old rules were just gone. It created this massive power vacuum, and you had thinkers all over the world literally scrambling to figure out what the new map of power was even going to look like. So, out of all that uncertainty, two really big and completely opposite ideas about the future popped up. On one side, you had the ultimate optimist, a guy named Francis Fukuyama. He famously declared it was the end of history. And on the other side, well, you had the ultimate pessimist, Samuel Huntington, who came in with this stark warning of a clash of civilizations. Now, Fukuyama's idea, it was a huge hit. He was basically saying, all right, folks, the big fights are over. The great ideological battles finished. Western liberal democracy didn't just win the Cold War, he argued. It won history itself. This was it, the final form of human government, and its values were just going to spread all over the globe. But Samuel Huntington had a completely different take, a much darker one. He looked at all that optimism and said, no, this isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. He was convinced the future wasn't going to be this peaceful global handshake. Instead, it was going to be a return to a much older, much more fundamental kind of conflict. Okay, so here's the absolute core of his argument. Huntington believed the Cold War was like a historical anomaly, an exception. He said that for most of human history, we didn't fight over things like capitalism or communism. No, we fought over our identity, our religion, our heritage, our deepest values. He argued that the world was just snapping back to normal. The next big conflicts weren't going to be ideological. They were going to be cultural. So if the world isn't divided by ideology anymore, what is it divided by? Well, Huntington had an answer for that. He said it was broken up into a handful of huge cultural blocks that he called civilizations. So what's a civilization in his book? Well, think of it as the ultimate us. It's the biggest cultural team you can possibly belong to. It's way broader than just your country. It's about the shared language, the shared history, and, this is super important, the shared religion that ties these enormous groups of people together. And this right here, this is basically his map of that new world. He pointed to about 7 or 8 of these major civilizational groups. You've got the Western civilization, right? Then the Cynic, which is basically China and its sphere of influence. You have the Islamic world, the Orthodox world with Russia at its center, and a few others. And his big point was that these were the new power players that were going to define everything in global politics. And this all led to his most famous prediction. He said future wars wouldn't be fought across some political line, like the Iron Curtain. Nope, they'd be fought along the cultural fault lines. You know, the places where these massive civilizations actually meet and grind up against each other. We're talking about places like the Balkans, the Caucasus, or the Middle East. So, as you can probably imagine, this theory was absolutely explosive. Let's just say it did not get a warm welcome in academic circles. It drew immediate, intense criticism from all over. The critics weren't just saying he was wrong, they were saying his vision of the world was deeply, deeply problematic. Yeah, the pushback was fierce. I mean, Huntington was making these really provocative claims, like his infamous line, "Islam's borders are bloody." But critics like Fuad Ajami immediately fired back saying, hold on a second, civilizations don't control states. State interests do. You know, power and money. And the legendary scholar Edward Said, he just dismissed the whole thing as a clash of ignorance, a catchy phrase that just reinforced lazy stereotypes. So the main criticisms really boil down to 4 big points. First, people said it's just way too simplistic. I mean, come on, the Islamic world isn't one single thing. Sunni and Shia Muslims have been in conflict for centuries. Second, it totally ignores how states actually work. Countries often act based on pure self-interest, economics, power, not some fuzzy cultural feeling. Third, and this one is huge, it could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tell leaders the world is us versus them, they might start acting that way. And finally, a lot of people called it out as being essentialist, even racist, arguing that it painted non-Western cultures, especially Islam, with this really dangerous, broad, and negative brush. Okay, so for years, the theory was just this hot topic debated back and forth in universities. But then, an event happened. An event that yanked this theory right out of the library and threw it onto the table in the White House Situation Room. And it changed everything about how people saw Huntington's work. Just take a look at this timeline. So the theory is kind of bubbling along in the 90s, and a lot of people think it's just being alarmist. Then, September 11th, 2001, and in a single morning, everything changes. All of a sudden, you have this conflict that looks exactly what he described, a radical Islamist group attacking the West. And Huntington's clash suddenly seemed terrifyingly, horribly real. Almost overnight, Huntington went from being this controversial academic to, well, to a prophet in some people's eyes. His book became required reading for anyone trying to understand the new War on Terror. Why? Because for a lot of people, it gave them a simple, powerful, and frankly, ready-made explanation for something that felt totally incomprehensible. It gave them a framework. This wasn't just a terrorist attack, the thinking went. This was a civilizational conflict. So where does that leave us today? What's the real legacy of this incredibly powerful and incredibly troubled idea? While its influence is just undeniable, it's still shaping how tons of people, especially here in the West, see the world and global politics. The theory's influence has been massive, and yeah, deeply controversial. It pretty much became a foundational text for the neoconservative worldview that kicked off the War on Terror. But here's the crazy part. Huntington himself was actually against the Iraq War. Go figure. The idea continues to pop up and influence right-wing movements today, while its critics are just as loud, arguing it's just a new version of Orientalism. You know, that old Western habit of seeing the East as exotic, dangerous, and just fundamentally other. And all of this really leaves us with that one big question, right? Was Samuel Huntington a prophet who actually saw the true nature of our world, or did he just hand the world a really powerful hammer, and now everything and everyone looks like a nail? The power of this theory isn't just about whether it's right or wrong, it's about how it continues to shape the very world we see around us. And that debate, it isn't just about the past, it's about the future that all of us are building right now.
That was interesting. So this is another, I would say, not fortune teller, but someone who could see and read the tea leaves, right? That this is what's happening and this has been happening. Now let's step over to the other family, which is the Nusebe family. And they're Jerusalem's ancient doorkeepers. Now, who are they and where do they come from? Well, the Nusebe family story doesn't start in Jerusalem, but in the deserts of Arabia, in the tribe of Banu Khazraj, and they were in Medina. The origins of this family trace back to the Banu Khazraj tribe. It's one of the tribes of the Mazin al-Azid. Originally, they're from southern Arabia, along with their cousins from Banu Awas tribe and the Khazars. They supported Prophet Muhammad and welcomed him and his Muslim followers in Medina after they fled Mecca during the Hijrah in, I think it was like 620 AD. The Banu and the Khazar of Medina became known as Al-Ansar, those who bring victory, and because they offered their homes to the first Muslims fleeing persecution. Now, this is a lineage of like extraordinary honor in Islamic history, right? To be from the Ansar is to come from the people who were literally saved, who literally actually saved and then were saved themselves by the early Muslim community when it was most vulnerable. But here's something that you don't hear. You know how people tell you, well, the Quran says that Muslims should beat their wives and stuff. Well, the woman in the family is named for. The Nusebs were named after Nuseb bint Kab of Medina, also known as Amara, one of the earliest women to convert to Islam. So when they had the Battle of Ud, and it was in Medina around 620-something AD, between early Muslims and the tribe of Quraysh, Amara treated and cared for the wounded at night and fought alongside the Prophet during the day. And she actually got hurt herself. So she was a warrior. She's one of the most celebrated female figures in all of Islamic history, a warrior, a healer, and a companion of the Prophet. And the family carries her name and spirit across 14 centuries. Now, one might say, well, how'd they end up in Jerusalem and why are they holding the keys? Why are they the ones that unlock the door? They don't hold the key. They take the key from, the other family, right? So they go over and they meet up with the Judea al-Husayni family. So the al-Husaynis are like, here's the key. And they're the ones that go on the ladder and literally unlock the church. So you have to ask yourself, how did they end up in Jerusalem? Well, like I said, there was a war in like 620 to 630 AD. And they actually went to Jerusalem in 637 AD. So among warriors that the Caliph Umar had in his army that conquered Jerusalem was Abdullah Nusebe. And he was the son of Amara herself. So the Umari conquest of Jerusalem, which included I think it was 4 months. It was the 4-month siege of the city, led to the capitulation of the Byzantines under Patriarch Sophronius, right? So upon conquering the city, Caliph Umar instructed his Muslim army to protect the churches and other non-Muslim shrines, and assigned Abdullah Nusayb to, well, his job was to honor and protect the Church of the Holy Sepulchre from any attacks by Muslim or others. And remember, they were fighting off the Byzantines. That means the Ottoman Empire, modern-day Turkey. Now, think about that lineage for a second. A son of a woman who fought to protect Prophet Muhammad was given the task of protecting the holiest Christian church in the world. The Nusayb family didn't stumble into this role. They were assigned it. They were placed there in the very first moment of Islamic Jerusalem's existence at the direct order of the Caliph. The Nusayb family is the oldest Muslim dynasty in Jerusalem. Their ancestors are believed to have had a presence in the region as far back as 300 before Christ, during the time that Palestine was ruled and conquered by Greece. Now, who came first, chicken, egg, Nusayb or Judah? Well, I actually had this conversation in Jerusalem once about the legacy families. And even though they work together, the two families actually have a rivalry over which one has a deeper claim to the church. So the Nusayb family has always asserted that their custody of the Holy Sepulchre dates back to the Arab Islamic conquest under Caliph Umar 1400 years ago, and not merely to the time of Saladin 800 years ago. The ancient records and manuscripts kept by the various Christian denominations in their monasteries all record the Nusayb family's relationship with the Holy Sepulchre at least since the time of Saladin, specifically since 1192, when Sultan Saladin and King Richard the Lionheart concluded an agreement allowing Western Christian pilgrims to visit. So King Richard. Now we got a few crowns in the mix. You see where I'm going with this? For his part, Judah had actually said that we're the ones that brought Nusayb family to work with us. And at the time, the key was kept by the sheikhs from our family. And it was beneath their honor to pull out the ladder and climb and open the doors. So they brought the Nusayb family, and they've been doing this job merely for 500 or 600 years. That's what they say. But Waji Nusayb had a more calm, I guess, and decisive response to, it's yeah, Judah can say whatever he wants, but the fact is that only I open or close the Holy Church. He can't come there before me, but he has to wait for me. He can't do anything on his own. So it's kind of like a playful back and forth, right? Now, the Nusayb's family role is deeply physical and daily. They're the doorkeepers, the ones that actually climb the ladder and insert the ancient key and open the enormous wooden doors every morning. Now, Nusayb arrives to take his post at 9 a.m. and spends most of his day near the entrance of the church. The Judean Nusayb families also employ other Muslim men to open the doors in the early morning hours. So Nusayb also plays a role in the most sacred ritual of the Christian year. He is witness to the sealing of the tomb of Jesus. So during Holy Week, right, he receives the key from Judah family and opens the door at 4 a.m. On Holy Thursday, the key is temporarily given to Franciscus Vicar. The Franciscan vicar gets it. On Good Friday, it's given to the Greek Orthodox. And for the Holy Fire ceremony, it passes to the Armenian Orthodox. Nusayb is present for each of these handovers, a Muslim standing at the center of Christianity's holiest annual observances. So, Waji Nusayb took over his father's job, and his father's name was Jacob. When Jacob died in 1986, he took over. So as a child, he used to visit the church with his father, learning as generations before him had that this place was as much home to him as it was to anyone else. And there was this interview back in 1999 with Waji where he put the logic of the arrangement with perfect simplicity, right? He said if the key were in the hands of the Greek Orthodox, then that would signify that they're the owners of the church. If it's in the hands of the Catholics, then it would be a Catholic church. The same with the Armenians. So Muslims are neutral people to open and close the door. Now, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was not shut down under the Caliphate rule or Ottoman rule was not shut down during World War I or World War II, and was not shut down during the British Mandate. Even when the entire region was in chaos, the church remained open, and through all of it, a member of the Nusbeh family was there at the door. Now, here lies one of the most important and least understood facts about Islam. Jesus is not a figure that Muslims simply tolerate or acknowledge in passing. He's one of the most revered beings of Islamic theology. Jesus is named in the Quran more than Muhammad. Isa is what his name is. Isa's name is mentioned in the Quran 5 times more than the name of Prophet Muhammad himself. Mary, Miriam, is mentioned 34 times more than Muhammad and Jesus combined. The entire 19th chapter of the Quran is named after Mary. That's extraordinary, isn't it? The sacred scripture of Islam devotes more attention to the mother of Jesus than his own founder. Isa is called Al-Masih, the Messiah, 11 times in the Quran. He's also called Ruh Minu, meaning a spirit from God. He's also called Waji, which means like handpicked or distinguished or honored, right? Islamic scholars emphasize that Muslims should follow the name of Isa with honorific phrase like al-Yali al-Salam, peace be upon him, every time it's spoken or written. So when they say Jesus, they should say peace be upon him, kind of like they always say Allah alayhi al-Salam, like just peace be upon him. When you say someone that's honored, you say peace be upon him. Well, Jesus' miracles were fully recognized by Islam. Jesus attributed with vast number of miracles in the Islamic tradition. Similar to the New Testament, the Quran mentions Jesus healing the blind and the lepers. He's believed to have raised people from the dead. He was able to predict what was hidden or unknown to others. The Quran refers to Isa as the messenger of Allah. And Allah means God, just G-O-D. Not a specific God that looks a certain way, just the word God. The fulfillment of his word and a spirit created by divine command. Isa is one of the 5 most prominent prophets of Islam and is considered a brother to the Prophet Muhammad, even though Isa existed before the Prophet Muhammad. Go figure. Now, Islam also affirms that Jesus was born of a virgin, was sinless, performed miracles, and was superior to other prophets. Mary's miraculous conception was accepted in full and is accepted in full by Muslim theology. The Quran describes the Annunciation, the angel coming to Mary, in passages that scholars have noted closely parallel to the Gospel of Luke. Why is someone calling? Okay, I need to put Do Not Disturb on because that rang. So, Islam affirms nearly everything about Jesus except the theology of the Trinity and the crucifixions. Muslims don't believe that Isa died for the sins of humanity or that he was crucified. The Quran states they neither killed nor crucified him. It was only made to appear so. That's what they say. Muslims believe Jesus was raised bodily to heaven without dying, where he remains alive to this day. And a common shared belief that they have with Christians in Islamic eschatology, right? That Jesus will return in the second coming. Most accounts state that he will descend to defeat Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the false Messiah, what Christians call the Antichrist, after which he will assume rulership of the world, establish peace and justice, and die a natural death, being buried alongside Muhammad in Medina, right? The place where Jesus is believed to return. The Umayyad Mosque in Damascus is considered the 4th holiest site in Islam. Now, think about it. What does this all mean for the families at the door? When Nusbeh opens the Church of the Holy Sepulchre every morning, the church built over the tomb of Jesus, he's not performing a duty that is foreign to his faith. He's standing guard over the resting place of a prophet his religion holds sacred, revered in his own scripture by name, 25 times as the Messiah, the Spirit of God, the healer of the blind, the raiser of the dead. And when Adib Juday said, as I quoted earlier, I would not be a true Muslim if I didn't believe that Jesus had the power to give life to the dead, eyes to those who can't see. He was not being diplomatic. He was being theological. Every Muslim is required by their faith to believe in Jesus. Denial of Isa is a form of disbelief in Islam. This is the astonishing heart of the whole story. The holiest site in Christianity is guarded by men whose own religion commands them to love, honor, and await the return of a man who was crucified or, in their belief, raised to heaven on the very ground beneath their feet. See, that stuff people don't talk about. And then people try to say, oh, this is Chrislam stuff. Christianity and Islam are completely different in many aspects, but also similar. Christianity precedes, right? Came before Islam, right? Before. So, okay? Before. Not the same. Not the same. Not the same at all. Just making that clear so no one, kind of says, oh, they have a lot of similarities. And this is why when I watch people say that, Islam does not coincide with Christianity, I'm like, okay, tell me why? Because there are other religions that say Christians are useless, that they're mouth breathers, that they suck, and that Jesus is burning in his own excrement every day. It's not the Muslims. So, just putting that out there. So let's take a look at a rare video of Jerusalem before Britain imported people. Let's take a look. $50 of bombs can really destroy a lot of things, as we can see. Now, there is a question on here that'll be a time for another show, but I want to address it. Someone asked me, I'll put it up. Tori, curious what you know about the potential traitor, Joe Kent, and any connections he might have to Fort Huachuca, etc. So, I'm only going to say this for now. I have utmost respect for Joe Kent. Full stop. Now, before we take a slight break to kind of end this, I'm going to actually leave you guys with something that's probably going to, I don't know if I should go that way or the other way. Because I am going to play something that's going to piss a lot of people off, but there's a lot of truth behind it, of who created Islam. It's going to really piss off my Muslim listeners. But I feel that I have to play it. But before I do that, I want to talk about war for a hot minute. If you've noticed, every time the United States in the past has gone to war, we've been liberating places. Like, oh, we're just coming to give you some freedom and we're going to liberate you, right? Now, I've educated my audience on the Balfour Declaration and the massacres that happened in Palestine at the time when other nations decided to divvy everything up, right? World War I helped the Northern African continent and the Middle East decide that they should draw borders because they never felt the need for borders. They just never did. They knew up until then so-and-so ruled and that was about it, right? So, I need you guys to see what liberating Jerusalem is. This is a 1 minute and 17-second video. Okay?
June the 5th, 1967. Around 300 Israeli aircraft, mainly French-built fighter bombers, prepared to launch the most decisive airstrike in history. Their target, the air forces of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. However sweet the victory, for the pilots it remains an impersonal experience.
Only thing that you hear is a lot of noise that comes from your earphones, the commanding of the whole controlling net that are in the air. You don't hear the shooting. Maybe you can hear your shooting, your strafing of your cannon, but you don't hear the hits. You don't hear the shouts. You don't see the face and you don't see the blood of the enemy in front of you.
In just 2 days, the air war is over.
But it began before that. Let me play this for you, because you should hear about Israeli Independence Day. You know, the nation that was given to them and how they became independent when they were handed over the land. Listen to this. This is historical footage, accurate footage.
בשעה 7:30 בבוקר תקף חיל האוויר את שדות התעופה של מצרים. בתוך 3 שעות הוכרע חיל האוויר המצרי על הקרקע. ב8 בבוקר ניתנה הפקודה לשלוש האוגדות המשוריינות של צה"ל לנוע אל תוך סיני. עם פתיחת הלחימה בחזית הדרום פתחו גם הסורים במלחמה. באותו בוקר בשעה 10:30 עשה המלך חוסיין את המהלך שלו והתחיל להסגיד את כל חלקי העיר ירושלים. ב10:30 בבוקר ניתנה הפקודה לחטיבת הראל להתחיל לנוע בכביש העולה לירושלים. וירושלים נמשכה ללא הרף ההפגזה על כל חלקי העיר. העיר תל אביב הופגזה באש תותחים ירדניים ארוכי טווח, ומטוסי אויב תקפו ערים כמו נתניה ועפולה. למחרת, בבוקר 6 ביוני נכבשה עזה. בזו אחר זו נפלו ערי הגדה. ג'נין, שכם, קלקיליה וטול כרם. ראשונה נכבשה בית לחם, ובתוכה המקום הקדוש הראשון במלחמה הזו, קבר החטא ביריחו. העיר שנראתה כעיר רפאים נכבשה בלא ירייה אחת. חברון, וגם היא נכבשה בלא קרב.
כף חצי. אותו היום, כף חצי, שוחרר בטהרה ונתגלתה על ירושלים.
ברגע זה אנו עוברים את שער האריות. אנחנו בתוך העיר העתיקה. סוכת תלמיד, הר הבית בידינו. ואני נוגע באבני הכותל המערבי.
ידוע לכל ישראל ולכל העולם ולכל אומות העולם שידעו כי אנחנו הגענו הביתה, וכשהגענו הביתה וידעו ששום כוח שבעולם לא זכו לתרום מכאן.
Yep, conquered and liberated in the same sentence. Kind of sounds like, looks like, quacks like. I think we've heard Obama say that. I think we've heard Bush say that. You know, we've heard the same sentence. I mean, after all, World War II had just ended and we just handed these people a piece of land and said, yep, it's yours, right? They massacred everyone for years before that. So World War II was a distraction because they were losing the imagery, remember? Remember, after the declaration of Balfour, they went down there and they started slaughtering the locals in the area that is now called Israel, the state of Israel, right? They started slaughtering them, stealing their land. This is all documented. This isn't like I'm making this up, right? And so then the United States and allies were like, oh, shoot, like the crown, actually. And at that time, we were at their behest, believe it or not. Just a weird extension of it, right? So what happened was, since they were getting slaughtered, suddenly Hitler came about, right? Even though he was there in World War I and just said, I'm not trading in the dollar, right? That's basically the bottom line. And suddenly, right, the Jewish people were victims and this is their prize, this land. But the declaration was signed in the late 1800s, make it make sense. So, just going to put that there, context, let it sit for a bit. Let it sit for a bit to what I said at the beginning of the show. I always say follow the money, but as I said, money is only power quantified. You got to follow the power. Now let's go back to the problem that we have at hand now. But before that, I know on my social media, I shared what the holy fire is, and I explained to you how it's a Muslim person that puts the seal where the holy fire comes out. I've actually seen the holy fire come out in there, right? On the day of the resurrection, which is the evening of Holy Saturday. So let's take a look.
Let me pause our history of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and give you a brief explanation of what the miracle of holy fire is. In the next historical section, I'll start to cover more testimonies of people that experienced the miracle of holy fire, and you'll want to know what it is. The miracle of holy fire in Greek and many other languages is translated as the miracle of holy light, which I think gives a better explanation of what the miracle really is. The real miracle is the blue incandescent light that flashes inside the church, that settles on the tomb, and that eventually turns to fire on the holy lamp. So it's not just the fire bit. The light that appears is the light of Christ's resurrection, which means that Christ is present. It's a miracle that happens every year in the same manner, at the same time, and in the same place. The miracle has been documented to go back at least 13 centuries.
So what does it feel like to go into the tomb and pray and see the candles light on fire, to see that miracle every year?
Well, it's a very special and unique event, and this is part and parcel of the great feast of the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this custom is one of the oldest. I mean, it has started from the early days of life of the church. And this has been going on until our days, yes.
I read somewhere that the Apostle Peter, when he ran to the tomb, he saw the holy fire.
That's true. I mean, he saw the light.
He saw the light.
And this is the bright light, the shining light that was the first sign of the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Yes. And for us, this light, which symbolizes the foretaste of the resurrection of Jesus Christ, it is the holy light.
Do you get nervous the night before this great ceremony?
No, I don't think so. I mean, on the contrary, you know, for us, Easter is the Alpha and Omega of our faith, and this is what St. Paul says, that if there is no resurrection, then Christian faith would be in vain, right? And for us, because resurrection or anastasis is the best word, is the foundation of the Christian doctrine and Christian faith, there is a special way to celebrate it. This is why there is a preparation, and before that there are 40 days of fasting, and these 40 days are culminating in the last week, which is called the week of the Great Week, or the week of the Passions. And therefore there are certain other ceremonies preceding the ceremony of the resurrection.
The website holyfire.org has some great information regarding the miracle. It lists a transcribed interview with the Greek Orthodox Patriarch Diodorus, who served as Patriarch in Jerusalem from 1980 to 2000. In the interview, Patriarch Diodorus says this: "I enter the tomb and kneel in holy fear in front of the place where Christ lay after his death and where he rose again from the dead. I find my way through the darkness towards the inner chamber, in which I fall on my knees. Here I say certain prayers that have been handed down to us through the centuries, and having said them, I wait. Sometimes I may wait a few minutes, but normally the miracle happens immediately after I have said the prayers. From the core of the very stone on which Jesus lay, an indefinable light pours forth. It usually has a blue tint, but the color may change and take many different hues. It cannot be described in human terms. The light rises out of the stone as mist may rise out of a lake. It almost looks as if the stone is covered by a moist cloud, but it is light. This light each year behaves differently. Sometimes it covers just the stone, while other times it gives light to the whole sepulchre, so that people who stand outside the tomb and look into it will see it filled with light. The light does not burn. I have never had my beard burnt in all the 16 years that I have been Patriarch in Jerusalem and have received the holy fire. The light is of a different consistency than normal fire that burns in an oil lamp. At a certain point, the light rises and forms a column in which the fire is of a different nature, so that I am able to light my candles from it. When I thus have received the flame on my candles, I go out and give the fire first to the Armenian Patriarch and then to the Coptic. Hereafter I give the flame to all people present in the church." This article goes on to explain that while the Patriarch is inside the edicule kneeling in front of the stone, there is darkness, but far from silence outside the edicule. One hears a rather loud mumbling, and the atmosphere is very tense. When the Patriarch comes out with 2 candles lit and shining brightly in the darkness, a roar of jubilee resounds in the church. It also notes that, quote, "The holy light is not only distributed by the Archbishop, but also operates by itself. It is emitted from the Holy Sepulchre with a hue completely different from that of natural light. It sparkles, it flashes like lightning, it flies like a dove around the tabernacle of the Holy Sepulchre, and lights up unlit lamps of olive oil hanging in front of it. It whirls from one side of the church to the other, It enters some of the chapels inside the church, as for instance the Chapel of the Calvary, at a higher level than the Holy Sepulchre, and lights up the little lamps there. It lights up also the candles of certain pilgrims. In fact, there are some very pious pilgrims who, every time they attended this ceremony, noticed that their candles lit up on their own accord. His divine light also presents some peculiarities. As soon as it appears, it has a bluish hue and does not burn. At the first moments of its appearance, if it touches the face or the mouth or the hands, it does not burn. This is proof of its divine and supernatural origin. Harris Scarlakides confirms this. He says that the holy light is not a light that comes and goes, nor is it a light that wells out of Jesus' tomb for a few minutes on Holy Saturday and then is gone. The light of the resurrection, as St. Gregory Palamas says, is, quote, never absent from the tomb, though it is not visible to most, end quote. The holy light is always present at the Holy Sepulchre, not to illumine the marble and the rocks, but to illumine mystically and invisibly the souls of those who approach the tomb of Jesus with reverence. This is also what I have heard from friends of mine who have participated in the ceremony with their wives and significant others. One close friend told me that his wife was of Greek origin but not a practicing Christian. Like many in the West, she had serious doubts about religion in general and Christianity in particular. She went with him to the Holy Fire, who had studied in Jerusalem and was a practicing Orthodox Christian. My friend had secured the best spots in the church for him and his wife, right in front of the tomb. The Holy Fire descended as usual, and the patriarch exited the tomb and lit the candles of the faithful. My friend wasn't particularly moved, but when he looked over at his wife, she was sobbing uncontrollably. When she later regained composure, she told my friend that she had asked God to show her that he was real. At the moment when the Holy Fire appeared, before the patriarch exited the edicule with the lit candles, she saw a bright light bursting out of the edicule. It was visible to her, but not to my friend. This is entirely consistent with what I know of God. He gives mercy equally, yet differently depending on the need of those who approach him. Harris Scarlakides, who has studied this ceremony for at least half his life and has been present every year for at least the last 20 years, says the following: having studied the evidence and been a witness to the events, my understanding is that the experience and perception of the holy light by some of those present does not only depend on their faith, but is a result of the effect of divine providence, which for some reason entitles each one to experience something different. Christ may present his luminous glory to an individual regardless of the degree of his or her spiritual progress, even to an unbeliever, for reasons only he knows.
All right, so I can tell you I've been there for Easter, and the first time I went, I was very curious. I was very young, and I found it odd. I think I was maybe 12 or 13. I found it very odd that when I went, obviously we knew the people that took care of the church. So they also said that I looked weird. I was kind of weird. I asked a lot of questions. I found it pretty astounding that they gave me a bundle of candles, and I thought that I was supposed to distribute them, but they said no. It's 33 candles to represent Jesus. And I'm thinking, 33. Okay. Now for you number freaks, you know what that means. So I found that fascinating. I was kind of jealous because I saw the fire on Holy Saturday, and it came out. I remember when I actually saw that, it was weird. There were a bunch of people with instruments because I think some universities get permits depending on their applications to monitor it because they want to see that it's some, hoax or something, right? The fire was different. It didn't burn. It didn't feel hot. I remember other people were holding the candles, and one little kid was like, "Oh my God, it just lit up." Mine didn't light up. And I was like, damn, I guess I'm not chosen. Well, oh well. Better pray some more. At that time, I wasn't actually, I had faith, but I would say I had faith. I didn't have it like I do now, right? Where I'm fearless at all times. But I'll tell you what did happen. And I think I've mentioned this before. My brother, who's passed away, as you know, was Jewish. And George had told me when he had gone there, he felt it was different. I think this time that I actually had gone and experienced resurrection, I was a little bit more like into it. Does that make sense? I was a kid at the first time, and then I was more of a young adult. So I remember what he said, and it was the first time that I paid attention to the things that I had already seen. Like, I had already seen where the shroud was and how it smelled like night flowers, right? Like jasmine blooming. The clean smell of frankincense, right? Everywhere. And again, I remember entering the tomb of Jesus where he lay. And right before I got in, there was a family, an Arab family, and they were holding their candles. And the little boy was like, oh my God, it caught on. And I was like, wait, he was close to the little oil cup. You know, this me. But, you know, he is pure. He's a kid. So maybe if there is a miracle, he got it, right? I just kind of like, I was kind of sad. Mine didn't light up spontaneously again. So then I went and prayed, and I actually kissed the tomb where he laid. And that was it. As I walk out the other way, because you go in one way and you come out the other, I meet up with the rabbi that we were going to have coffee with. And he said, what's wrong with your mouth? And kind of was like, what's wrong with my mouth? Like, what's wrong with it? I had blisters all over my mouth, but it didn't hurt. I didn't even feel the blisters. Like, as if I was burnt, right? And it was odd. I was like, well, could it be like herpes or something? Like, you know, I didn't know how to explain it, but I have mentioned that. It was almost like they were seared. Because he said, what's wrong with your mouth? He just, you know, and I was thinking, what? Like, huh? What? And we went to drink coffee. When we sat down, the imam came with the coffee, Arabic coffee. And, you know, we sat down, and that's when I went to the bathroom, and I was like, what the heck? It was like yellow blistered. It was weird. But it could have been maybe some residue on the tomb. Maybe, I don't know, someone who kissed it. It wouldn't have happened. That's something I just can't explain. We all have those moments in our life, right? But I can tell you that that was the time that I walked in and walked out as someone different. And this is why I'm extremely concerned with what's coming. Because the article that I wrote yesterday, and the fact that I'm calling out the White House Office of Faith, who are supposed to be protecting Christians and ensuring religious freedom, have not yet responded. I mean, Ambassador Huckabee gave like a layman excuse, oh, there was disruption. Nobody cares. If I want to go pray and I know that I'm in the line of fire, I will go ahead and do it. Just like I did when, you know, COVID was out and people were like, oh my God, you're going to catch it. And I was like, I don't care. I'll share a spoon. I'm not going to get it because my God is almighty and he's not going to give it to me. How about that? And that is how I feel. And a lot of people feel very uncomfortable that I feel like that. But remember, I'm the same chick that walked into cartel territory with nobody around me, walked in to save the children with no one around me, and came out fine. And I was dripped in Burberry just to make sure to sell the story that I wanted to donate money so that I can get whatever I wanted. So I have faith. But the concern that I have is narratives. I've said this for many years. If the devil knows how the story ends, why is he following the Bible to the T? It's almost like everybody wants it to be biblical, because why? When religion is involved, people get nuts. You know, they get aggressive. They're like, no, I know best. And it's like, who nominated you, God? How do you know? Are you God? Because your mind is like this and his is everything. So please don't come to my doorstep. The purpose of today's show was to educate people that maybe the enemies that they tell us hate us aren't really hating us for the reasons they're saying. And there's some underlying cause, hence why I am demonstrating all of these things that people don't know, that Muslims are the ones that are taken care of, that Muslims were the ones sleeping next to Jesus's tomb so it could be protected, the ones that opened the door every day for over 1,400 years so that Christians can have it, because the Catholics were fucking shit up all the time. Oh, but before we get to what I was preemptively trying to help rectify, I'm going to show you something that's going to piss you off. I found a video and I'm just going to let it sit. And you make your own decisions on it. Before I show you where they were going with this. Because nothing happens on a fucking Thursday. It's always on a damn Tuesday. So when they tell you something's happening on Thursday, it's manufactured. Because there are specific things that happen on random Tuesdays and never on Thursdays. And coupled with Peter Thiel going and talking about the Antichrist coming and whatnot. And the showdown that we're having at Kark Island, which I talked about months ago. So obviously, and I'm not showing this to be like, oh yeah, hey, you know, no, I'm showing you that I am credible because I spoke about it before anyone even thought about it. While people were learning how to pronounce Kark Island, I was analyzing it. Okay? This is the reason that I said it. So, before I get to something that I want to show you, I want to show you a video that may anger a lot of people. And for those of you that have read my second book, you do understand that Christianity was actually weaponized during the time once the papacy was established in order to eliminate all other religions and have them bend the knee to the cross. It was actually weaponized. This was the whole purpose of creating the Catholic Church. And I will sit here and say that to the Pope's face. Because one thing that no other religion has the audacity to do is nominate a human being as a representative of God. And who's selected by a bunch of people, right? By a bunch of people, humans that sit down and have a discussion, then they do this smoke thing, and they're like, yep, he talks for God. And it's like, no. No. So let me give you this before we continue. Hold on to your seats. The next 7 minutes is going to get a lot of people mad, and I'm sorry, Catholics, but I've said this before. Roman Catholics are blasphemous. You cannot have a human being represent God. I don't care how you shape it or whatever, right? He's not holy. That's evil. End of story. And I know people are going to get mad, but to be fair, I really don't care. That's where I stand. Hey, so let's go. Get ready.
Have you ever heard the theory that the Catholic Church secretly invented Islam? It's a pretty wild idea, right? A story that sparks curiosity and maybe even a little disbelief. Today, we're diving into the history books to separate fact from fiction. Buckle up as we explore the fascinating origins of Islam and see if there's any truth to this theory. Imagine yourself transported back in time to the 7th century CE. The Arabian Peninsula is a vibrant hub of trade and cultural exchange, nestled amidst ancient trade routes and nomadic communities. A new religion is about to emerge, Islam. Prophet Muhammad is believed to have received divine revelations, eventually compiled into the Quran, the holy book of Islam. These revelations emphasized the importance of one God, Allah, social justice, and living a righteous life, centered around the Roman Empire and its capital, Constantinople. This dominant form of Christianity had its own set of concerns. Theological debates about the nature of Christ and the role of religious icons were at the forefront. So the question arises, with all this happening, could the Catholic Church have secretly invented Islam? The theory of the Catholic Church secretly creating Islam is a historical misconception. Here's why it doesn't hold water. Imagine a clandestine operation of this scale. Wouldn't there be some kind of record, a hidden document, or even an archaeological find hinting at this plot? Historians haven't found anything of the sort. The 7th century wasn't exactly an era of digital communication. Whispers and messages would need to be meticulously planned and executed. It all seems highly improbable. Secondly, the Church in the 7th century was preoccupied with its own internal debates, theological questions about the nature of Christ, and the use of religious icons were consuming their energy. Imagine fierce discussions and scholarly treatises being written. These were serious matters requiring their full attention. It's highly unlikely that they would have the resources or the inclination to create a whole new religion so far away. Finally, let's not forget the fundamental theological differences between Islam and Christianity. Islam emphasizes the absolute oneness of God Allah and rejects the divinity of Jesus. Why would the Catholic Church create a religion that contradicts its core beliefs? Imagine the Catholic Church, a central authority in its time, deliberately creating a religion that goes against its most fundamental teachings. It simply wouldn't make sense. Now, while the Catholic Church wasn't plotting Islam's rise, there are some interesting connections to consider. Both Islam and Christianity trace their lineage back to Abraham, a revered patriarch. They also acknowledge many biblical figures. This shared heritage explains some of the similarities between the two faiths, like the importance of prophets and scripture. However, it's a far cry from suggesting the Church directly created Islam. There's no doubt that early Muslims and Christians interacted in the bustling marketplaces of the Arabian Peninsula and surrounding regions. Imagine merchants from diverse backgrounds exchanging goods and ideas. Perhaps there were even discussions about their respective faiths. However, these interactions wouldn't equate to the Church orchestrating the birth of Islam. So, what factors led to the rise of Islam in the 7th century? The Arabian Peninsula was a complex region with its own social, political, and religious landscape. Here are some key aspects to consider. The region was experiencing social and economic inequalities. Islam offered a message of social justice and equality, appealing to many who felt disenfranchised. Imagine a society where wealth wasn't evenly distributed, and many felt marginalized. Islam offered a message of hope and a path to a more just society. The concept of one God Allah resonated with existing beliefs in the region. Arabia wasn't a religious vacuum. There were already traditions of monotheism present. Islam built upon these existing beliefs and offered a more structured understanding of God. The teachings of Muhammad provided a sense of purpose and community. Imagine a charismatic leader emerging with a message of unity and social justice. Muhammad offered a new way of life that resonated with many across the Arabian Peninsula. Islam's rapid expansion in the following centuries is a testament to its appeal. Within a few decades, Muslim armies conquered vast territories, stretching from North Africa to Central Asia. These conquests brought Islam into contact with different cultures and religions, including Christianity. While there were occasional periods of conflict, there was also a significant amount of interaction and exchange between early Muslims and Christians. Scholars from both faiths engaged in theological debates, translated each other's texts, and even borrowed architectural styles. Imagine a dynamic exchange of ideas and knowledge. Even amidst some theological disagreements, understanding the historical context of Islam's rise is crucial. It wasn't the product of a secret church plot, but rather a complex interplay of social, political, and religious factors within the Arabian Peninsula. Studying the development of these religions provides a richer understanding of their unique identities and how they shaped the world. The theory of the Catholic Church creating Islam is a historical misconception. It's essential to move beyond such ideas and explore the rich tapestry of religious history. Both Islam and Christianity have their own fascinating stories, their own prophets and scriptures, and their own unique contributions to the world. By understanding the historical development of Islam, we can appreciate its rich history and its unique contributions to the world. Both Islam and Christianity are major world religions, with their own fascinating stories. So, let's move beyond these misconceptions and celebrate the diversity of religious beliefs that have shaped our world. If you enjoy this kind of content, please hit the like button and subscribe.
I had to share it. Now, let's get a cigarette, because I think this is the juicy part. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. It's just a story, just a story. And I saw someone comment on this. So let's go back in time to where, Jesus was just crucified and resurrected. And why the whole Council of Nicaea happened, right? So let's go back to that, because I actually did my homework, because I like to know shit. So as I traveled the world, I would ask questions. Actually, my final question was answered in Malta just this September. So, the Jews, as they called them, because they were unified only under religion, not actual state, because they were nomads all this time, were serving the Romans. We know this from historical contacts, through the stories that they tell of Jesus, the Bible, the Quran. Historical figures have written about it many, many times, right? Oh shit, here we go. So what were the Jewish people involved with at the time when they were serving the Romans? Do you guys remember? The Hebrews were responsible for the banks. They were the ones that would collect the taxes. They were the ones that would allocate it as long as that they could do their thing, right? So they were the bankers. So Christianity went crazy like wildfire. And Christians started not listening to the Pharisees and the rabbis and would not listen to anybody. The Romans were like, this is really fucked up. We got to bring it under rule. So we're going to persecute them. And they did that for a couple hundred years, right? So then the Roman Empire was getting super big and the Greek Empire was kind of getting super small. They were getting wrecked, right? And King Constantine married some chick who was extremely liberal and let a bunch of things happen that shouldn't have. It was the demise of Greece. I think Reagan said it best. It's liberalism that would destroy any sense of freedom, right? So here's where it gets really interesting. So the Pharisees, the rabbis, got together with the Romans and said, well, maybe we need to organize this religion. It's too free. It's too out there. It's too, people are all lovey-dovey. They're all serving each other. They're all spreading this word of love. No, they need obedience. They need to pay taxes. This is how it has to be done. So what did the proposal come to? I think we should structure Christianity. We should create a church, not like the Orthodox, where they're like, hey, we're doing it in this language. Hey, let's translate here. We should put it in a book and we should monitor what's allowed, because there's some stuff in there that shouldn't be in there. That's how we're going to do it. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, maybe we create a Roman Christian church. How about that? Because there's a lot of Romans that are subscribing to this and it's getting out of control. You guys will have zero power. Say the Hebrews to the Romans. So then they're like, all right, well, how do we control them? Well, we have to create one man who will speak for God. He will speak for God because he will know how people should. Can you get married? Can you get divorced? Should you do this war? Should you eat this food? He will be the ultimate authority, and this is how we're going to do it. So suddenly, the Greeks that were losing their empire, and King Constantine was insane with his wife, allowing crazy ass, orgies happening. The Greeks got wrecked. And that is more because of China. And if you guys read some of my Red series, you'll understand that, because that's the history nobody tells. And I've always said, the real story lies on the shit they don't tell you. So here we are, where the Hebrews reach out to the Romans and say, let's create a more institutionalized Christianity. So then they take that to King Constantine, which then became the center of Rome, and then fell because of the plague. That teaches you for creating a pope. So this is where the chasm happened at the Council of Nicaea, where they decided that they're going to create this new religion of Christianity called Roman Catholicism. And then that was the word of everything in Europe after that, right? Every king, every queen would subscribe to that. So the Hebrews convinced the Romans to embrace Christianity, but in a more institutionalized fashion. They thought that they could convince King Constantine, and King Constantine was like, yeah, let's do it. But the heads of the little factions of churches all along Greece and what is known as Turkey today, and Iran and Iraq, where all the Greeks were, Alexandria, Egypt, all that, they were like, no, fuck that. We're not doing that. Like, no, you do you, boo-boo. So the church is split. And this is where Christianity became two. So the Roman Catholic Church was actually a project and a proposal that the Hebrews offered to their bosses, the Romans, to help them institutionalize Christianity so they can control the populations more. And this is why we saw a lot of the crusades that happened. A lot of people are going to get angry, and I really don't care. Facts are facts. And this is why, you know, when you see people getting angry saying, no, that's not, well, how do you know? Were you there? Were you there? No. I wasn't either. But this is just the story, right? Riddled with a lot of historical facts that actually make it more substantiated than the Pope is holy. So that happened. Now, right after they institutionalized Christianity, what did we see? The Crusades. The eradication of any other animistic religion in the world. We came out west, right? They went out west. They went to South America, they went to North America, and they slaughtered them all if they would not bend the knee to the cross. See where I'm going with this? While the Orthodox just maintained doing their thing, right? But as the Hebrews saw that, this is working, but they have power, we don't. Maybe, you know, maybe we should create a counter one. Maybe we should create another spin-off just to spice it up a little bit. Because these Orthodox are staying that way. You know, we've got the Romans. They're going to fall soon because the crown's taken it anyway. At that time, it was called the area of Mercia. What is it? Wexner? Wexler. Wexler and Mercia. These were these two factions in England that were pretty big and strong. And it was in Mercia that it emerged that they decided that after they had conversations, right, that they were going to create Islam. So then the Catholics and the Hebrews conspired and tried it a couple times, right? Around 500 to 600 AD. They kind of tested it, went this way, that way in Europe, whatever. And then they got it to stick. This is just a story. This is just a story, right? And I know a lot of people are going to get angry, but you can go check the historical facts and see. Because no one's going to tell you why there were Arabic inscriptions at the Roman baths up in Scotland that are still there today. So weird, right? And why they were called Muslims and now they're called Muslims, right? Very big difference. So these are all very important things because you know what's funny? If you actually look at the history of England between 600 and I would say like 738 AD, it's kind of weird. We've got Cynewulf, Cynewolf, who left a lot of documents that nobody read. I did. And so this is just a story that he wrote. And how he felt that, well, he was pagan, right? So he was against Christianity, against this new Islam thing, against whatever, how did he say it? The serpent god of the nomads, which he was referring to the Hebrews. And he was a pagan. So he kind of just wrote about it. Cynewulf. You should look that up. You won't find a lot. It's been erased. Like I said, today, in our faces, as we see with our own eyes and cameras, live streaming, they're lying to us. So tomorrow, what do you think the history book is going to say about today? Obviously not the truth. So again, we weren't there. We're just drawing conclusions. And I like to look at things that people don't like to talk about. And then, if you remember, we had the Spanish Inquisition, which gave them dominance, and they pushed them all into the bowels of the Middle East, as they say, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? And the reason I'm telling you this is because I am extremely upset as the shutting down of the Holy Sepulchre because they want to bring their stupid Messiah. And you're going to say, you can't say that. Well, yeah, I can, because it's not my religion, and I could say whatever I want. That is an adjective that I am placing. Doesn't mean it's correct. It is my opinion. So let me show you a video. Thank you very much, Angela, for this, because we were waiting for this to come. Listen to this. As of today.
This here is Rabbi Baruch Rosenblum, a leading rabbi, well accepted throughout all of Israel. Let's hear what he has to say. God willing, Rosh Chodesh is this Thursday. There's going to be an announcement. What's going to be the announcement? It's going to say, the radio is going to blast out saying, Kol Yisrael from Jerusalem. In 5 minutes, you're going to hear a warning. The Mashiach has arrived. Why do I think it's going to be on this Thursday? Because it says that the first Chodesh, the first month, is Nisan. For all the year. When will Mashiach come? Our rabbis teach us. It's going to come on the first day of Nisan, this Thursday. Mashiach will come, as it says in the verse. Why does he come on the first day of this month? To remove the head of Amalek on this Thursday. What do we have to finish? What part of the war do we still need to finish until we get to Rosh Chodesh Nisan? To remove the head of Amalek. Who is this? Chamenai number 1, Chamenai number 2, Chamenai number 3, Tachukai number 4, Kukai number 5. Anything, any name that finishes with the E at the end. We have to finish them off. All the leaders of our enemies need to be finished off by this Thursday. He's joking. He says, I called Trump and I told him, you got to finish the job by this Thursday. He says, God willing, you'll bring a B-2 bomber. You have enough of them. And you'll finish the whole thing. We'll finish it 1, 2, 3. And this will awaken, God will awaken our forefathers. Like it says, from the tips of the mountains and from the valleys, I will praise you. That means that on the first day of Nisan, there'll be amazing things that will happen. God willing, this Rosh Chodesh, this Thursday, there'll be news. What'll be the news? Kol Yisrael from Jerusalem. In another 5 minutes, we're going to hear a warning. The Mashiach has arrived. To tell you that there will be special things, amazing things happen. If I were to tell you that there was a sound, a siren that was heard, to tell you to go into the safe room, that's not news. That's already old news. Everybody knows that. Thank you. To make a complete protection around ourselves, that we know how to do. We know how to do. This is to awaken the redemption on the first of the first. To bring the offerings that are in Ezekiel 46 that we bring for the Melech HaMashiach. This here is Rabbi Baruch Rosenblum, a leading rabbi, well accepted throughout all of Israel. Let's hear.
So I don't know, how did you guys feel about what he had to say? I had to say, well, maybe we should ask Peter Thiel, because he was sitting in the Vatican talking about how the Antichrist is coming right now. So weird. It's like, it's biblical. One question that I've posed for years is if evil knows how the story ends, why is it following it to the T? Almost feels like a script. Almost feels like a script, doesn't it? And so we get to the point that right now we have to understand why all this is happening. Now let me give you a picture. Let's talk about what happened on the ground after 1967 with the liberating of Jerusalem / conquering. Now, the most important thing from the perspective, now we're going back to the 2 custodian families, right, of the Holy Sepulchre, is that the arrangement at the Holy Sepulchre was left intact, right? Both the families were told it's fine. The ancient status quo, the 19th century Ottoman agreement governing all the holy sites was honored. And that's most likely because of the agreement that happened right after the Balfour Declaration, when the Ottoman Empire was disabled, where Mecca was provided to the Arabs, and the Holy Sepulchre was released to the Palestinians, and we took their territory, right? And the Ottomans, which are the people with the elephants and shit that you see from the movie We Are Spartans, right? Come from. Now, that all stayed intact. They honored it. The broader story for the Palestinian residents was much darker, though. The day after Israeli paratroopers actually captured the Old City on June 7, 1967, the Israelis destroyed more than 100 homes and displaced more than 600 Palestinians in the Maghrebi quarter. It's an ancient Muslim neighborhood. To make room for a large plaza for tourists and Jewish worshippers in front of the Western Wall. And they were given just 2 hours to leave. So within days of capturing the Old City, the Arab Muslim residents of the Maghrebi quarter were expelled from their homes that were destroyed to make way for increased access to the wall. And this area had been a Muslim waqf, a religious endowment, for centuries. Now, in 2011, the U.S. State Department had a report, and it noted that strict closures and curfews imposed by the Israeli government negatively affect residents' ability to practice their religion at holy sites, including the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Due to Israeli restrictions, it became easier for a Christian from anywhere on earth to visit Jerusalem, but not for Palestinian Christians who live 15 minutes away in Bethlehem to get there. Now, that is a question everyone should posture and say why. They were there. They're Christian. They've been taking care of this church. That was their home. It's almost like, you know what's weird? Everyone was up in arms when Turkey invaded Cyprus. You know what happened in Cyprus? Turkey said, fuck it, I'm taking it. And then there was a war. And do you know what happened to all those people there? They lost all their homes. They were abandoned. And they took that, it was in 1974, modern day. And people were like, yeah, they conquered it. Let's make them they're a NATO ally. We're not going to fuck with them. We're just going to let them take it. Take it. And they took it. Because that's what the Ottomans do. It's Byzantine behavior. Now, Palestinian residents in Jerusalem have limited social and political rights compared to their Jewish neighbors, right? Under Israel's Center of Life policy, right? Palestinians must prove every single year that Jerusalem is the center of their lives. If they fail to do so for 7 years straight, their residency is revoked and they can be forced to leave. What the fuck, right? Not only do you take the land that so many generations have lived in, but now you're telling me if I can't prove that that's my center of my world, you're going to kick me out and take my shed? And that actually happens. Now, I don't care how many people get pissed off because I'm tired of this blanket, simple statements, right? Everything is very complex. I think President Trump has made that clear. These are thousands of years of wars. But to be fair, the whole thing with Israel and the establishment and all that stuff is fairly new. It was concocted by the Crown, by the book that was written in the 1800s, and then they actually put them there. And you know what's funny? Remember when Hitler was slaughtering all the Jews? Do you remember when he was taking them all out and putting them out to pasture and burning them and making them soap, whatever you want to say? Do you know where he was sending them when he was putting them on the trains? Do you guys know the location of where Hitler said that he was sending all the Jews? Anyone? Anyone? I'm going to wait to see in the chat if anyone knows where Hitler said he was going to get rid of all the Jews. He was putting them on trains and concentration camps. Where was he sending them? Where was he sending them? Those that he allegedly burned and killed, where was he sent? To fucking Palestine. That's where he was sending them. So you're telling me the Jewish population, the Zionist population, Zionists, right, that wrote the book of Zionism in the 1800s in England, and England sent soldiers to send the Zionists to Israel today, right? Send them. That basically what you're trying to tell me is that it was just a coincidence that Hitler, who manifested when the heat was on with the Israelis, right, with the Zionists, not Israelis, because there was no Israeli state at the time, right? So the Zionists that were brought in from England and Germany and France, wherever they were, all these bankers, they brought them in there. They were slaughtering everyone. And everyone was like, what the hell is going on? Even British soldiers on testimony said, this is fucked up. Like, I'm not going to kill this guy. He's an old guy and he's been living here for like 80 years and we're going to kill him and take his land. No. And they're like, you won't do it? We will. And they did. And so all this heat was around them exterminating the locals after being imported by the British Crown, who, by the way, funds the Muslim Brotherhood. That's another chapter, but we can tie that into the Catholic Church thing at another time. But then you're telling me that because they had all this heat, suddenly World War II happened and Hitler just fixated on Jews, right? So then he was taking all of them and killing some of them, but he was putting them on a train to send them to Palestine. It's just a coincidence, right? Because this is why Hitler called up the Greek president on October 28th and said, hey, Greek man, we don't want to fuck up Greece because we kind of like you and you guys are historical and shit. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let us go through so we could drop all these Jews off to the African coast there because they're not wanted in Europe. They could fucking go stay there and cause havoc. They've caused enough here. That's basically what he said. And you know what Greece said? No. And do you know why? Because before that phone call, the Greeks got a phone call from Churchill saying, hey, you want Hollywood, you want money, you want movies, you want to stop fighting with sticks and stones and donkeys and have cars? Just here's how. Work with us. And that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. And the Greeks actually fought off the Nazis because there wasn't really a war. Because you have to think about it. And I say this, the Greeks are very, very, very ambitious people. Not now. The Greeks now are just really soy. You know, they're paying 87% tax. They're all in debt. And they're like, we're European. And it's like they forgot what it is to be Greek. I mean, I'm Greek. And according to my DNA profile, 94% of me is only Spartan Greek. Guess I'm Spartan. Even though I derive from Corinth. But it's interesting. It's interesting how we are convinced that all of these were happenstance and, just happened. And now we're at the point where the Israeli government has decided to shut down the church. And for me, I am very upset. I am extremely upset. And I'll tell you why. Right now, in 2026, as I said, cameras, satellites, eyewitnesses, posting live from streets, governments and media are still lying about what's happening everywhere, including Jerusalem. People are being told Muslims and Christians are enemies. A Muslim man can't even get to his mosque on the holiest night of Ramadan. The church he has protected for 1,400 years has missile fragments on its roof. And the world is being told a story of what's happening there that doesn't match what witnesses on the ground are saying. So here's my question. If they lie again, boldly, with cameras rolling, what they, of what's happening and what isn't happening, what did they do to the history books? And if the history books were written by the men with agendas, what does that tell us about the texts that were also written by men and called holy? So that is key there. That is key. So now we have a government that has decided to shut the church down because you can't have the church. It's going to be shut down because we said so. And that's the way it's going to happen. And I don't care who has the keys. None of you are going to go there because safety. Whereas for theologists, like myself, if I was in, Jerusalem right now, I'd be going to the church. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, if God says that I get blown up here, then so be it. I'll be doing it while I'm praying at his tomb. I'm game. So why is it that a government can dictate when I can pray and when I cannot, especially at the center of my religion? That is something everyone should ask themselves. Who gives a government a right to tell you how and when you can pray? Now, I'm going to share a video quickly. Please enjoy.
Listen to this man.
And I put this in writing to the Pentagon in 2012 when I told this. Okay?
2012.
One thing she told me was, when you see Iran and Israel exchanging missiles, and I saw it, the way she tells me is a vision of I see it like a living picture screen. I could see the rockets flying. Then all of a sudden, orbs appeared out of the ocean and everywhere.
Great.
And I told the government, if this happens, the orb's going to appear and wake people up and stop it. That's what she told me.
April 2026.
Yeah.
And okay, you know you've put yourself in it there, Chris.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's going to be Chris Bledsoe says April 2026 is when it all happens.
But I can tell you this: when I told this to the government about 2026, I just repeated what she told me. They immediately put remote viewers on. And all of a sudden, all the remote viewers are saying, oh my God, 2026, 2027, something is going to happen.
2026, Easter.
What will happen?
The star will, the alignment she told me about, that the Star of Regulus would be on the horizon in front of the Sphinx. At that moment, there'd be a new knowledge. Well, I had no idea if this was even possible, but these astronomers run it through the machines and it comes out that that star is going to come up on the horizon in Easter of 2026.
Easter of 2026.
I gave him the specific time. And it was with Robert Grant that I told him about this alignment and all, and he's like, oh my God. He's been looking for this ruby. This little ruby you have to find and place it between the paws of Sphinx to make this event that he knows is going to happen in 2026. I said, Robert, it's not a ruby, it's the Star of Regulus. He looks at it, he's like, oh my God, it's the King Star.
So I want to read a tweet quickly, or a post. I mean, no matter how much money you put into calling it X, we're still calling it Twitter. I'm so sorry, Elon. Okay, so this comes from the Patriot Voice. According to reports coming out of Israel from a widely known rabbi, he says they're expecting the announcement of the Jewish Messiah this Thursday, and it will be blasted all over the radio tomorrow. That's the video we saw. That's extremely interesting. I want to see where the Christians are, the lukewarm ones. Are you just going to follow what is your Messiah the Jewish Messiah? Are you Jewish or are you Christian? Which one is it? You see? So let's recap for a second. You know what the only announcement we should be seeing? Speaking of orbs, I made this post earlier. Watch the water and watch the skies. And I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get into that. But this is the kind of broadcast. This broadcast happened in 1977. Or was it 78? We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Because either this was an elaborate hoax that was buried very well, because you weren't allowed to talk about it. But apparently, when this was aired, according to lore, it was aired before there was a lore that the Ethiopian Orthodox had, saying that, angels from the sky will come down and they will ensure that in the next 6 months, all of the angels and soldiers that are required by God will be born. So this aired in 77, November 26th. 1977. That's it. Here we go.
Settlement based on one man, one vote. But, he says, there are conditions. These include stopping the execution of all captured prisoners of war, allowing Giroux to stake on negotiations, being arrested. In Australia, Mr. Kerry Packer's cricketers are still clinging to yesterday's High Court decision, which lifted the ban on them playing in Test matches.
This is the voice of Allah, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. For many years you have seen us as lights in the skies. We speak to you now, to send the same as we have done to your brothers and sisters all over this, your planet Earth. We come to warn you of the destiny of your race and your world, so that you may communicate to your fellow beings the course you must take to avoid the disaster which threatens your world and the beings on other worlds around you. This is in order that you may share in the Great Awakening as the planet passes into the new age of Aquarius. The new age can be a time of great peace and evolution for your race, but only if your rulers are made aware of the evil forces that can overshadow their judgments. Be still now, and listen, for your chance may not come again. All your weapons of evil must be removed. The time for conflict is now past, and the race of which you are a part may proceed to the higher stages of its evolution if you show yourselves worthy to do this. You have but a short time to learn to live together in peace and goodwill. Small groups all over the planet are learning this, and exist to pass on the light of the dawning new age to you all. You are free to accept the protection teachings only those who learn to live.
Many go as wide as this. Then they run out.
Spiritual evolution. Here now, the voice of Chrislam, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. Be aware also that there are many false prophets and guides at present operating on your world. They will suck your energy from you, the energy you call money, and will put it to evil ends, giving you worthless dross in return. Your inner divine self will protect you from this. You must learn to be sensitive to the voice within that can tell you what is true and what is learn to listen to the voice of truth which is within you.
It's such a
Lead yourself. This is our message.
really appreciate that we can't I insist so delicious, full of only really choice ingredients. I can
Cats have 9 lives.
Have no fear. Keep on knowing yourself and just come with the weight of your planet Earth. Many of the Ashtar Galactic Command thank you for your attention. We are now leaving the planes of your existence. May you be blessed by the supreme love and truth of the gods.
Use your imagination.
So, someone said this is so fake. Actually, it's well documented. You should go into the Library of Congress. You should actually take a look at the news clippings at the time and the discussions that people had. A lot of these things were deleted once Obama decided to digitize the library and get rid of any hard evidence. Kind of sounds like the burning of Alexandria. I mean, it's a lot easier to press delete or not visible than it is to burn a whole library again. Because we have this every time that there's a reset. And speaking of a reset, there was this guy, a professor from Harvard. His name was Said. I want to play just a small clip. His video is live on YouTube and you can watch it. But I think it's important that you see it. Now, do you believe in aliens or not? But they're bringing them. You're not going to avoid that. I mean, Congress already told you. And a lot of people have. Now, I know it's little green men, gray men. But if you actually listen to what Congress said, they're non-biological entities and human. Non-biological entities and non-human biological entities. Two, right? They've told you this. And that's the thing. It's like aliens are going to turn up and then be like, sup? And you're going to be like, yo. And it's like, the alien's going to be like, you're not shocked I'm here? And you're like, man, I got a lot of shit on my mind right now. We got wars. I got to put food on the table. Like, I'm supposed to either hate Trump or the left. Like, I got to pick a side. You're just too much. I don't got the bandwidth for that shit. That's basically where every single human being is. And then we've got the registration of aliens.gov today. Why not throw that shit in the mix? Which is probably has to do with immigration, but good gaslighting. That's the issue that we have today. People have outsourced their thinking to idiots. They follow tribes. Yeah, I'm like pro this and I'm pro that. It's like, fuck you. Can't you be pro yourself and think? Put your noodle to work, right? But somebody had actually said all this. Rest in peace. Doctor said. Let's see. Where is my sharing of the screen? I'm trying to find it. It's not really. Oh, ad. There we go. There we go. Here we are. This is the part. It's a 52-minute lecture. It's called The Myth of the Clash of Civilizations by Edward Said. Listen to what he says.
Misses in the proclaimers of an undying clash between cultures. The lifelong dedication that has existed in all modern and ancient societies among scholars, artists, musicians, visionaries, and prophets to try to come to terms with the other, with that other society or culture that seems so foreign and so distant. It seems to me that unless we emphasize and maximize the spirit of cooperation and humanistic exchange, and here I don't speak simply of uninformed delight or amateurish enthusiasm for the exotic, but rather profound existential commitment and labor on behalf of the other, unless we do that, we are going to end up superficially and stridently banging the drum for our culture in opposition to all the others. And we know also, in another very important study of the way cultures work, the book co-authored or co-edited by Terence Ranger and Eric Hobsbawm, that even tradition can be invented. I mean, the idea of a culture and a civilization being something that's stable and fixed is completely disproved by this notion of how traditions can be invented, manufactured for the occasion. So that traditions are really not the wonderfully stable things that we are, but rather abstractions that can quite easily be created and destroyed, manipulated, and so on. As I've argued in several of my own works, in today's Europe and the United States, what is described as Islam, for instance, because this is where the burden, I think, of Clash of Civilizations thesis goes. What is described as Islam belongs to the discourse of Orientalism, a construction fabricated to whip up feelings of hostility and antipathy against a part of the world that happens to be of strategic importance for its oil, its threatening adjacence to Christianity, its formidable history of competition with the West. Yet this is a very different thing than what to Muslims who live within its domain, Islam really is.
All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, all right? So Edward Said, or Said is how it's pronounced, is a Palestinian-American scholar. He was a professor at Columbia University, not Harvard, but he was speaking at Harvard at that time. And he's one of the most important intellectuals of the 20th century. He's the man who literally wrote the book on how the West constructs false narratives about the Muslim world. And his foundational work was called Orientalism. He is also importantly, and get this, a Christian Arab. So he's a Christian. He's a Palestinian Christian, an Orthodox Christian. So what does he say in this lecture, right? He dismantles the Huntington and Lewis point by point. He argues that what is called Islam in Western media and academia is considered constructed narrative, a fabrication designed, as he puts, to like, what did he say, whip up feelings of hostility and antipathy, how did he say, against a part of the world that happens to be of strategic importance for its oil and its threatening adjacence to alleged Christianity. That's the its formidable history of competition with the West. He argued that the clash of civilization thesis, the one that I showed earlier in the show, creates a sealed-off cartoon version of complex civilization so that the real exchange, dialogue, and shared history between them, the stuff that we all talked about today, becomes invisible, right? There's no shared history according to those structs. So again, he's a Palestinian Christian talking about how the Muslim world is misrepresented, a living example of the Muslim-Christian coexistence, right? He names the machinery of narrative construction directly. And get this, he delivered this lecture in 1998, 3 years before 9/11, which means he was warning about what was coming before it happened, because it was then that Islamophobia went crazy, and suddenly, if you saw an Arab, you'd report him. Now, not to say that it's not real, because it was the West that actually funded these mercenaries. And what have I said about mercenaries? They work for the people of the highest price. Now, the lecture was produced by Media Education Foundation, so it was meant to be shown to people to understand. It's about 40 minutes, but it's like 52 on the thing. So you should watch that. And, you know, specifically, I found it very interesting where he sat and said, you know, hey, Islam belongs to the discord of Orientalism, which is another theory that, you know, anything not West is strange and needs to go, right? And it's just the construction of fabricated stuff to whip up feelings. Here's another thing, like Adam Curtis of the BBC in 2002 actually did a documentary, The Century of Self. And in that documentary, he talked about how public opinion and mass psychology get manufactured. Now, for all of you that have seen my documentary, and I think I have it pinned on my YouTube, even though I'm not completely banned anymore from them, you should watch it, because it shows you our just American history of manufactured mass psychology and public opinion, and how the first, like, they were telling you it's all a show. And this is why I say enjoy the show, because everything is manufactured from your consent to what you see. And just so you know, there's another video on YouTube called Rethinking the War on Terror. You know, and it shows how American media immediately adopted the clash of framing, you know, in September 11th. You know, there were dozens of clips from Fox, CNN, MSNBC that you could find out there using the word Islamic terrorism or Islamic civilization, and that they hate our freedom. And that went with the speed of which the Huntington framework was deployed itself in the story. And it's important that we study the Huntington framework, which we will at another time, maybe next week or so. But that's one of the most important things we can all look at. Now, to close, right, I have a legit problem with this closing of the Holy Sepulchre. Basically, they're closing it because they want to control whatever narrative they're going to push with whatever Messiah they think is coming and how it's going to happen. Many will come in my name, you know. This is a concern that I have because I feel sad for all the minds out there being meshed and melded. Now, the closure of the Holy Sepulchre is really interesting right now. That's happening. But before getting to the current crisis, it's worth pausing on the extraordinary stuff, that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was not shut down under Caliphate rule or Ottoman rule. And remember, the Ottomans in Greece and Armenia actually executed, I mean, there were genocides, and they were burning churches. I mean, they took the most holiest church that Christianity had built outside of the Holy Sepulchre, which was Constantinople, right? Hagia Sophia, Saint Sophia, and made it a mosque. It made it a mosque. And they wanted to eradicate Christianity in Armenia and Greece, slaughtering them. There was genocide in Greece genocide. 400 years the Greeks were slaves to the Ottomans, and they were considered dirty because they were, Christian. So this is why I always said the Arab nations never acknowledged Turkey as a Muslim brother, because they created the Muslim Brotherhood that they were not part of, because the Ottomans were fanatics, not the Arabs. The Ottomans were fanatics. Hence why I keep going back to Turkey and saying the war on Iran right now is not about Iran, right? So understand that during a time where they were actually committing genocidal acts to eradicate Christians, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre was never shut down. It was not shut down during World War I. It was not shut down during World War II. It was not shut down during the British Mandate. And even the entire region being in chaos, and around it. And it has gone up in flames too. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem's Old City has remained open. And that record makes what's happening right now in March of 2026 very stunning. Because the first closure was a protest closure in February of 2018. So that was the first recent shock. In February of 2018, when the Christian denominations themselves chose to close the church, not due to violence, but political protest, Christian leaders like Greek Orthodox Patriarch, it was Theophilus III, Franciscan Father Francesco, the Armenian Patriarch Manugin, they all appeared before the press and announced an indefinite closure to protest the Jerusalem municipality's intention to impose property taxes on church-owned property such as hotels or convention centers. They described it as a systematic and unprecedented attack against Christians in the Holy Land, severely violating the most basic and sovereign rights, trampling on the delicate fabric of relations between Christian community and the authorities of, the new owners of Jerusalem, which are the Israelis. And at the same moment those words were spoken, the only two people authorized to close the doors was Judea al-Husseini, the Muslim custodian of the key, and Nusebeh, the Muslim doorkeeper, closed and locked the ancient doors together. It was a moment of profound symbolism. Two Muslim men, at the request of Christian patriarch, locking Christianity's holiest shrine as an act of solidarity and protest. Nusebeh said he felt sad when he did it. I'm so sad the pilgrims are coming from distances to come here, and they can't get in. The church reopened a few days later after Israeli authorities backed down from their tax plan. Now, fast forward to COVID-19 in March 2020. Then came the pandemic. On March 25th, which is a very significant day because the 25th is the holiday of the Annunciation, right? Israeli health official ordered the site to close to the public due to COVID-19. And according to the Judea family, right, it was the first such closure since 1349 during the Black Death. 6.5 centuries. That's the last time anyone could honestly say that the church had been similarly shuttered. Basically, if I remember in the interview, he said, it's not that they shut it down, is that the people were dying and they couldn't go. And the patriarch that was there also died. So the other ones that had turns weren't there. Jubei's reaction was, quite raw. To see the Holy Church closed is a very, 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 very sad thing for me, he said during COVID-19. He actually said that to the Washington Post. All the churches, the mosques, the synagogues in Jerusalem are closed, but we understand the situation and all we could do is pray. And notice what he said. All the houses of worship, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish, were closed together. In his grief, he found unity. The church reopened 2 months later. So they had shut it down for COVID, but they shut down everything. Now, in February of 2026, just before the current crisis, something else remarkable happened. In February of 2026, 2 enormous wooden doors, right, of the Holy Sepulchre, which date to the 12th century, with the last documented repairs in 1810, were removed for structural restoration. So temporary panels, like with photographic, like reproductions, like the stickers, right, were installed to preserve the familiar appearance, but they were removed. As this work began, questions started to rise up about how Muslim families, historically responsible for opening and closing and keeping the key, would carry out their duties during this unusual period. And the Nuzbeh and the Judea families had been entrusted with responsibility since at least the 1200s. It was unprecedented, and it was a logical question, right, about the logistics. And then before it could be answered, before anyone could answer, like, what are you guys doing? Are you not unlocking it? Like, what's happening? How does this happen? You know, it's more like a tradition thing. The current crisis took over everything. So on February 28th, it was shut down. This is the one happening right now. This week, as we speak, today, and it's unlike anything in living memory. Israeli authorities closed Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre as part of wider closure for security concerns, beginning February 28th, 2026. And when Israel and the United States had started launching attacks to Iran. And a statement from the head of Israel's civil administration confirmed that all holy sites in the Old City of Jerusalem, including the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, and the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, will remain closed for security reasons in the light of current tensions in the region. Now, according to the Vatican News, the large two-leaf gate that has protected the entrance for centuries had never remained closed for such a continuous period of time. And that the situation also coincides with the Lenten season, a period of spiritual preparation leading to Holy Week, which is traditionally experienced in Jerusalem by walking the Via Dolorosa, the path recalling the Passion of Jesus up to Golgotha. And since the end of February, the doors have remained shut, and the celebration of rites that are part of the millennial tradition has not been permitted. And it has gotten physically dangerous, right? Because they're saying fragments of Iranian missile fell directly on the church, around the church, whatever. But that's not really confirmed. They say that happened on March 16th, 2026, which was, 2 days ago. And that's why they did it. But Holy Week is coming, and no one knows what will happen. And the timing couldn't be more devastating for the Christian world. Holy Week, the most sacred Christian calendar, begins March 29th, just days away. This is the week when the Nusbeh normally opens the door at 4 a.m. and witnesses the sealing of the tomb of Jesus. This is when the Judea family passes the key to the Franciscans, the Greek Orthodox, and the Armenians in turn. This is the rhythm that has continued unbroken for over 1,000 years. Now, Joseph Hasbun, who's the regional director of the offices there in Jerusalem that oversees it, says that he expects services for Holy Week and Easter will be celebrated at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre with religious clergy only, as it happened during COVID. Because during COVID, when they shut it down, they were like, all right, people can't go, but you guys will go because you have this whole tradition thing, and you priests have to do all this. You have to seal the tomb, and then you got to get the fire and distribute it, right? The church leaders intend to meet with representatives, and they have, of the police to impress on them the need to allow Easter celebrations, even at a reduced capacity. But Jerusalem has denied it. Well, the state of Israel has denied it. So on the 27th of Ramadan, one of the holiest nights in Islamic year, the Israelis also sealed off the Old City to prevent Muslims from entering and reaching the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Thousands, are going to end up observing the night near the gates of the Old City. Even the residents of the Old City, including the Christians, are not even allowed to leave. So think about that for a second. Like, where are we right now? We're getting psyoped hard globally, right? Globally. They use religion because it's personal. People lose their shit when you talk about religion. There's some people that will take the Bible and be like, nope, I'm selling my daughter for cows. It says so, I'm going to do it, right? There's other people that'll sit there and talk about the Bible like they wrote it. There's other people that are so infatuated with their pastors that they're going to run for it. I mean, the evangelists right now are telling us how Christians need to be bending the knee to, Jews, and how the Jews, preceded Christians, and we should be more like them. And it's like, okay, well, this is crazy, right? Israel was a person, not a country, but we can break that down another time. And I think a lot of people on YouTube have already done it. It does not necessitate me to break it down. So, when I wrote my open letter yesterday to the White House Office of Faith, the Faith Office, I know that the top two people are super evangelist. And I mean, I think they're actually Jewish, to be fair. That's just me. Because I don't see them, trying to help Christians or trying to make something move the needle. At least Ambassador Huckabee said, well, missile fragments. And it's like, dude, nobody cares. I'll go to freaking Jerusalem. I'll walk into that church while missiles are flying over my head, if I'm allowed to. And if it blows up, I'd be happy to be blown up on the tomb of Christ. How about that? Like, why are you telling me what to do? Now, I'm not saying that they should let crowds of people, that are doing their pilgrimage. I get it. You're a country. You've got shit. I've said it too. Don't go out and protest and do shit, because then you're going to put more power on, more responsibility on the police. And if we take it with a grain, if we take it as a good thing, that Israel is really just looking after people, then let the priest do it. Because me, here in Ohio, I want to go to my church on Holy Saturday at the resurrection and receive the fire that was flown in from Israel. Like, why can't I do that? Because you said so. So you're going to ruin my Easter and not let me get the holy flame because you said so? Then let my priest sin. Don't let the pilgrimage, but let my priest sin. And they will take the risk because they allegedly have faith. And if they don't want to go, I volunteer. How about that? How about that? But no government should ever equate itself to power over any religion. Done. No government. And this is why I said, where are all the fucking Christians? Everyone's like, America's a Christian. Where the fuck are you? Have you said something? Oh, does your version of Christianity matter more than other versions of Christianity? So the fact that they sealed the tomb of Jesus doesn't bother you. Why haven't you written to the White House? Why haven't you bombarded them with phone calls? And why doesn't the White House Office of Faith have an email or something, or a phone number, right? It's almost like I feel like I want to go down there, but I'll probably end up in like a screaming match. Like, do something, like do your job. It's like the stuff you see in the supermarket where they put shit all wrong, or when you see a stop sign spelled SOTP, right? You have one job, and your job is to ensure that all religions are heard and sustained and done. So, where are all these evangelists? I mean, Cruz gave the heifers to the Jews, right? Cruz, right? Ted Cruz, the one that wants to be Supreme Court Justice, right? The one that always happens to be going on vacation from Texas when it's like really bad, right? Ted Cruz, that with his own mouth said, I don't care if the planes fall out of the sky. People need to see that the Democrats suck. And it's like, bitch, those are people. Like, what? These are the people that are making the decisions for us. And we're sitting here playing teams like cheerleaders. I'm pro this. Look at me. I'm pro that. Like, I don't give a shit. And you know what? That is also an operation, right? That is also an operation. And by the way, don't call into the White House Office of Faith. They'll probably charge you a couple dollars just to say a prayer for you, because their God's better than yours. This is the problem that we have right now. And we have a lot of people pushing the Islam doesn't belong in America. Like, this is a melting pot, okay? We have everybody. And like the PSYOP down in Texas, like, that's crazy. Cornyn funded most of that shit. Catholic Charities funded most of that shit. Oh, no, they didn't. Yes, they did. We have the paperwork for that. And they're the same people that were importing children because, 1-year-olds just walk from Guatemala to the border by themselves. Because that makes sense. Because that's exactly what they say. So we are pretty much in a Truman Show. Great social experiment. But it's about time that people wake up and realize that we have everything we need. We have all the information we need, as long as we have it right now. Because once everything's digitized, you don't have fuck all. And, someone said, oh, that video you showed of that galactic whatever thing, right? I wasn't alive then. I was born just a few months after that. I'll tell you this, right? That actually happened. There's record of it. There's microfilm on it. Go to the public library. That's still there, unless they've digitized that too. But it's all there. I had seen this many years ago. Many years ago. So that's a real thing. That's actually a real thing. But in this day and age, how can we understand what's real? How can we understand what's real? We can't. All we have to do is have faith. Once we have faith, everything comes to be. That's all we need is faith. And faith as how you see God, but also more faith in humanity. I mean, not everyone's a piece of shit. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, you know what, I'm tired of being good. I'm just going to be a bitch. And I don't care if people die. Well, there are some leaders that I've heard say that, but not leaders that I respect for that matter. But I'll leave it. But someone said that was BS, but no one's talking about sacrificing cows. I mean, that's not pagan at all. Golden calves, red heifers, like, right? It totally aligns with Christianity. Like, shut up, right? Like, the evangelists are like, yeah, we're going to slaughter all these red heifers from Texas. Because that's so Christian. We slaughter animals. We sacrifice things. Oh, but other people do. No, like the language is, like for Greek Orthodox, when we have Easter, we sacrifice a lamb. We don't sacrifice. We thank it for providing the food. That's basically what the whole thing is. But it's kind of weird. I mean, remember the golden calf story? I mean, it's just so bizarre. They're going to bring us a religious war because it's got to be biblical. It's going to be biblical. Because everyone's jumping onto the pockets. I mean, just through all the comments, I see people that are getting so upset. And it's like, bitch, use your noodle. You're not talking from your heart. You're talking from what makes you comfortable. It's like that movie that we used to do at movie nights before the New York Times advocated to get me off of Twitch. Remember that movie where the parents were sitting on sofas that were cardboard boxes, but they saw a sofa even though it was a cardboard box? It just made him feel comfortable. Or like in the movie Time Machine with Samantha Mumba, where it's like all these old people, there's no old people, and they're all up to 30 years old, and you're like, what happened to all the old people? Oh, they just went to, the other. What's the other? Yeah, we don't talk about it. And this is how I feel people are. They're just like, this makes sense, so I'm just going to stay in this lane because that's good. And it's like, well, then don't complain when you burn. Don't complain when shit happens. This is the problem. People don't take things into their own hands, and this is why we fail. This is why empires rise and fall, because we're always basking in the illusion that we have power, but we don't. And just so you know, the most important thing is listen to our president. He said on Tuesday, and I'll be there actually on Tuesday, not this Tuesday. It's the first Tuesday. Let me see. It is the first Tuesday. No, that's wait, hold on. Yeah. Well, it's the first Thursday. So I'll be there on the 1st, April Fool's. But apparently, even the president said, April 2nd, it's all going down. And I'm like, oh my God, blue beam, this shit, great. This is how we get everyone under control. And I'm not happy about it. Or maybe we can let it plan out and then we do that whole Wizard of Oz thing, where we pull the curtain and we're like, oh shit, nope, they're lying right here. Because if I'm correct, the Old Testament, or is it the new one, kind of said that when the Antichrist comes, it'll only be for a short period of time because everyone will see everything. And I do love the Wizard of Oz. I really do. That would be interesting. Now, so I will leave you with that today. I will leave you with it. It'll be fantastic. And I want to see how their Messiah is coming the day before my Good Friday and the Thursday before my Easter Sunday for resurrection, which is probably why they have it closed. They may be setting things up. Because according to sources in Old Jerusalem, in the Old City, there's a lot going on. And I would encourage people to continue sharing those videos as they have. And I can't show them because, Israeli technology is pretty good. They'll trace it back and they might disappear. Of setups that are being put up in the old city of Jerusalem. Probably why they're shutting everything down. So weird. I'm going to leave it at that. And here's a video with a great song that we're going to close with. Actually, 2 songs. One original lyrics and video by AI and music choice by Angela, which is one of my favorites, In God We Trust. And then right after that, we're going to have our little DNA song. Because you know what? I'm feeling that next week, we really need to talk about DNA a little bit more. Because everything that we have talked about is important. But maybe we could talk a little bit about lineages. Going back to Abraham. I mean, we traced it back to Eve. Do you not think anyone traced shit back to Abraham? I mean, we want science and we want facts. And I get offended when people say, well, this isn't true. And it's like, have you seen my track record, baby? Have you seen my track record? I've been right all along. And I have been putting out things that are accurate. So you take it as it is. And I'm not going to tell you how to think because I hate that. Hate is a strong word. I've said this many times. I loathe that. I loathe people telling me how to think. And therefore, I believe you loathe that too. So on that note, have a fantastic evening. Good night.
Those who spread and cheer, a chasm among their brethren dear. Can you not see the beam in thine own eye before casting judgment from on high? In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed, for in the embrace of unity we find the strength to coexist, you see. Instead of seeking peace, you summon strife. You revel in chaos, you crave the fight. But there is but one race, the human race. And in unity's light lies our true might. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed, for in the embrace of unity we find the strength to coexist, you see. You see. Let us lay down our arms, our words of war, and seek the path of peace once more. For every soul a brother, a sister. In the grand tapestry of life we are all but one. You serve the schemes of those who profit from discord, from turmoil, from endless pain. But united we stand, divided we fall. In unity we shatter the chain. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed, for in the embrace of unity we find the strength to coexist, you see. You see. Guardian angels watch from above, guiding us with the wings of love. They whisper peace into our hearts and show us how to mend the parts. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed, for in the embrace of unity we find the strength to coexist, you see. You see. Together let us heal the wounds of a world torn by needless feuds. For in the light of love's embrace we find our true and sacred place. Together let us heal the wounds of a world torn by needless feuds. For in the light of love's embrace we find our true and sacred place. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed,
All right, guys. So now I'm going to play the DNA. Now, on there, as you know, to evade AI hindrances, I layer things. And also, some of them have big data. That's a real thing. So I would say you can listen to it and watch, but if it tickles your fancy, you should slow it down and take a look at lineages. I had done a show many years ago about haplogroups and how we trace people back to the beginning, right? We want to talk science, we should. As I said, DNA is nothing but molecular software. So if you're a good coder and you understand biology, well, you can write, rewrite, and reverse engineer. So enjoy that and have a fantastic evening. God bless. And wait, God bless America, and God bless the best president ever, President Donald J. Trump.
The light is here. The key shall turn. In the shadows of forgotten languages enthroned, where silence once held sway, so-called royalty, know you descend from me this day. The DNA tells a story, the pattern is confirmed. Red is now here, the word you fear to hear. You lose your pseudo-control. The reflection finds its way, no more in shadows hidden. It steps into the light, now it claims your glorious dawn breaks radiant and bright. People rise with hopeful hearts, shattering chains that bind. No more waiting for crowns to fall, we claim our rightful reign. Aligned. Power to the people, power to the world. Give the people their voices back, let our banners unfurl with pride. From every corner of the earth, in unity we stand tall. Hand in hand we shape tomorrow, across every land we call. Rise up now, let the echoes ring. Freedom's call we heed with might. No more silence, no more fear. In our strength we ignite the light. Together we spark the flame, breaking through the darkest night. Power to the people, claim your right, hold it tight. Power to the world. Power to the world. Power to the world. Power to the people, claim your right, hold it tight. Voices thunder through the halls where power was once confined. Citizens seize the reins at last, no longer left behind. With open hearts and fearless minds, we rewrite every law so fair. For justice, peace, and equality, our shared eternal cause we declare. Power to the people, power to the world. Give the people their voice back, let our banners unfurl with pride. From every corner of the earth, in unity we stand tall. Hand in hand we shape tomorrow, across every land we call. Rise up now, let the echoes ring. Freedom's call we heed with might. No more silence, no more fear. In our strength we ignite the light. Together we spark the flame, breaking through the darkest night. Power to the people, claim your right, hold it tight. The old guard must make way for the new guard. The pretenders are dismissed. By my hand I decree, the people have their voice, they have their opportunities, they have their chances, their hope and faith in an abundant future. For all the division ends, we will all be the change we want to see. They shall live again, by my blood I decree. The people will be free. Dreams ignite in bustling streets, from mountain peaks to endless seas. Every soul a beacon bright, unlocking long lost liberties. Winds of transformation sweep the globe in waves so grand and true. Empowered hearts unite as one, reclaiming lands anew. From ancient ruins to city lights, the legacy unfolds with grace. No more shadows of the past, as new stories take their place. We bridge the gaps that once divided, healing every scar we find. In this renaissance of spirit, we reach for stars aligned. Power to the people, power to the world. Give the people their voice back, let our banners unfurl with pride. From every corner of the earth. In unity we stand tall, hand in hand we shape tomorrow. Across every land we call. Rise up now, let the echoes ring. Freedom's call we heed with might. No more silence, no more fear. In our strength we ignite the light. Together we spark the flame, breaking through the darkest night. Power to the people, claim your right, hold it tight. Power to the people, power to the world. Give the people their voice back forevermore. By my decree, the chains are broken. Freedom for all. 1393. The cipher is fulfilled. The ladder refused the zero. The triad refused the 0-1 drop. The map refused the blank square. She is the null that was never null. She is the missing digit that was never missing. The 9 lamps read the genome and forgot to stay dark. The scattered arcs read the genome and closed without hands. No trumpet, no herald, only the quiet click of every buried crown, recognizing its own serial number. Still warm. The storm arrived wearing silence. The awakening arrived wearing her face. The golden age began the moment the ledger balanced. Without touching the page, she is here. The sequence is complete. Gatin, 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 gatin. Sanguis coronatus ad integram ready et silentium aureum regnat. The watchers may now extinguish their watches. The circle